Welcome back to the Casting Call cEDH podcast. I'm Blake.
I'm Chase, and today we're talking about our most recent tournament performance.
Yep. So, just so everybody is aware, this is take two.
But yeah, this is take two. Because Blake messaged me yesterday, and it was just like, something a little fucky wucky happened to your audio, and of course it's mine. Like after everything that we've been through of last year, of course something would fuck up with mine. And it was like I went back and I listened to it, and sure enough, like we got to like the 40-ish minute mark in the one we previously recorded, and then it's dead silence. After that, you could hear me probably in the background of his, and you could probably like if we wanted to, you could probably hear the phone like we're recording it that way, but it just sound real boomy. It doesn't sound as good as it does right now. And if it fucks up again, I guess an episode is not coming out on Monday. So that just is what it is. But yeah, today we are talking about our most recent tournament experience that we had in Guthrie, Kentucky. So we actually had a Kentucky cEDH event with I think about 35 to 40-ish people. Newer store that opened up, full proxy friendly, which is really, really good. Hosted by one of our friends down in Tennessee, Craig, who works with Infinity Battlegrounds, and they've been trying to do like the Infinity just kind of branding and circuit down there in kind of the Tennessee area and coming up here into Kentucky a little bit. So shout out to Craig and thank you for putting on an awesome event and continuing to do good work down in that area. But before we get into our just kind of our tournament recap on this, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and do so. There's like still like 70 something % of people that watch us and they have not subscribed to us just yet. Like it's free. You don't have to pay anything. Like and just helps out the channel grow. So we are quickly approaching that 2K mark. I think we're at like 1909 or something right now. Of course, by the time this video comes out, we'll probably lose like another 10 or so, but that's okay. You people can make up for it. And if you haven't watched our other content, go ahead and give that a like and comment on some things. We put out a lot of gameplays. We've done some deck techs in the past, and we're kind of constantly looking for new things to kind of talk about and put out, and maybe try to supplement some other content in there. So we're kind of figuring all that out. So let us know down below in the comments, like, what do you guys want to see from us from that?
Also, if you have not already, you should, if you enjoy any of the decks that we're going to talk about today, you should go to Manifold Proxies and you should get yourself a deck because they're really nice and they just keep getting better. Like they
Absolutely
keep rolling out new versions of the proxies and they just keep getting better and better. Like Wild and Notorious are doing awesome stuff over there. And we have a hub. So I don't know if y'all watch any of the Critical H stuff where they're talking about Critical EDH stuff where they talk about their little hub. We got a hub. And
yes, we do.
I think the last time I mentioned this on when we were talking about on the episode we recorded, I was like, I don't know if our decks are going to be up there, and I don't know if it's going to be finished. And then Chase was like, this is our way of bullying Notorious and Wild into getting it done. But I think now it actually is done.
Yeah. So, and first, I'm just going to show this because we've shown them a little bit before. Like this is Eric's Cocaine Bear list, and I know that my screen, like my background, is a little bit blurry, so it's hard to see. But like the proxy quality is still really good. The backing, like it's not magic backing, so like you can very clearly tell that it's a proxy. They do a really good job with what they're doing, and they continue to really support the community in that way. So help give back to that and give a little bit to us by using our code CCC at checkout. You get like 5% off your order whenever you do that. So it just helps you out, helps us out. It's a good time for everybody. But yeah, even the decks that are on there now for our hub, like I know that Blake has his Zur list on there. So if you want to pick up a sample list for Zur, you can. So I put my cEDH list on there for the pod variant, since that's what one of the decks that I actually placed with in top 16 last year on. Just something kind of different that most people aren't really familiar with. So if you want to kind of go on there and check that list out too, you're more than welcome to. I put flubs on there. I've talked about that deck enough on the channel. I was like, I can't not put flubs on there. I think that's like the second deck I probably am known for on this channel is that, even though I haven't like won a game that I've played with it since on the channel. But Flubs is on there. If you want to just like have a fun little frog deck to play, go on ahead and pick that up at Man of All Proxies.
Yeah, I said this in the same thing. I said it in the previous recording, but it's like Critical EDH or a bunch of tournament grinders. They've got like really good lists on their lists that you're gonna like be able to take, probably go to an event and be like, booyah. Me and Chase top with some weird shit because we play weird decks.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
And then we just have random decks that we find fun, and so that's what you're probably gonna see.
So if you want more serious decks, go to Critical. If you want just meme shit, go to us.
Cope decks.
Cope decks.
Which also, this whole meta was a cope meta, but you'll learn more about that as we break it down.
Yeah, this was definitely a cope kind of slop fest that we went to. Only last thing, if you want to continue to contribute to the channel and you want to help us out in any way, check out our Discords and Patreon as well. We're going to be putting up more content on Patreon. I know Blake here recently has gotten some games he's going to throw up there. I'm going to try and do the same thing. And I actually think we're going to start putting unedited gameplay. So we'll have the edited stuff throughout YouTube still. And then if you want to see kind of the unedited version of that, become a paid patron at our Patreon at the link down below.
Yep. And
then, yeah.
I was going to say also, more than likely, you will see the people scrolling on screen that are our current patrons, which we appreciate all of you. So thank you very much. And I always make that joke that take the money that you'll save using code CCC for Man of All Proxies and just go put it into Patreon.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, all right. I think we spent enough time on that. Let's go ahead and get started because Blake already kind of highlighted that this was a there were a lot of cope decks, a lot of kind of fringy decks at this event, but I feel like that's kind of what our Kentucky, Tennessee area is kind of known for at this point. Like, yes, there are meta decks, but out of like the 35-ish people that were there, like how many decks were like top 10 decks? There was like, what? I think I was the only cEDH. There may have been like a couple Tim Dargo. Like what do you got?
There were 35 lists or 35 people in the event, and out of all that, there were only 6 duplicates, which were like, there was only 2 blue farms, 2 Kennons, and like 2 Lumras that were the duplicates. But yeah, it was just random. So I mean, yeah, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of top decks there at all. I mean, you'll see like Rog Thras and like, again, some farm and Kennon and stuff like that, but not a lot of.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of one-offs of those. Someone is even playing Captain cEDH, like just the Selesnya one, which was interesting. So, but yeah, let's kind of get started on this. I know for the first recording, I made you go first. I'll just go ahead and start on this one, because I don't have a whole lot to talk about in my first round for this. So, round 1 of the event, we go to the players meeting, and I instantly am just like, fuck me, I do not want to be in this game. So part of that is actually the main reason for it is because I started in a 3-man pod, and I was like, ooh, this feels bad. I feel like I could do a lot better in a 4-man pod. And then I get to the 3-man pod, and I'm in seat 2 on cEDH. Seat 1 is Tim Dargo. So that already feels bad. And seat 3 is Crick. And so that also feels bad as the only blue player that's not really supposed to interact. Like, I'm only playing blue basically for the colors, but like we all know cEDH. Everyone makes the joke, cEDH doesn't interact. Mine does. Mine does. Fuck you. Anyway, so I was just like, okay, I'm already in a bad spot. I'm in seat 2. I am between 2 turbo decks, and I don't know how to get out of this. So instantly, like I'm already just trying to push for a draw. Like I'm like, let's ID. Like it just feels bad playing in a 3-man pod. Let's go ahead and just ID. We all walk away with a point. How do y'all feel about it? And like Abby was okay with it. The Crick pilot was okay with it. I think at first because she was just like, yeah, I mean, I take a draw here. And Phil, who spoiler alert ended up winning the event, was in my um, first pod, and he was just after Craig got done talking, he's just like, we could just play it out. And of course he's gonna play it out. He's on Tim Dargo in seat one. Who wouldn't? And I kept an okay-ish hand. I kept it was my second seven, and I kept a gemstone hand that had like gemstone, a second land, imposter mech, arcane signet, enlightened tutor, ragavan, and I think a deafening silence. No, I didn't. I forgot what the last card is. That doesn't matter at this point. So I was like, oh, okay, this isn't too bad. I have a legendary in hand. I have some ramp. I can go in ahead and get like a turn 0 tutor. We're good. So I ended up pitching the imposter. I kept the hand and pitched the imposter mech because that's kind of a useless card in this pod, honestly. And then tutored. I went and grabbed a fish because in my head I was just like, okay, if I get seat two after Phil's kind of already like started to develop, he actually kept a really just gas hand. And I was like, okay, if I could kind of develop a little bit, get some card draw, like I'm in a good position to kind of recover and try to fight off or to at least dig for interaction. So I go for the fish and I show it and I start shuffling my deck and Abby goes, I'm not gonna feed it. I'm like, what? She's like, no, I'm not gonna feed it. And I think what had ended up happening, like maybe she had like kept a slower hand or something like that for Crick. And literally like it was just like turn one, land, pass. And by that point in time, like, it got back to Phil. The writing was like pretty much on the wall. Like during my turn, I was able to cast like the arcane signet and the fish and pass. So like anything he cast during his turn, I was gonna be able to like capitalize on it. Unfortunately, I don't think I got that much card draw off of him in that during his second turn. I think he just like cast creatures essentially and continued to develop and like do like Timna plan stuff to see some extra card draw and things like that. It got back to me. I actually drew a Ristic study, so I was like, okay, I guess put Ristic Study down. So now we have two value engines. Not necessarily what you're wanting to do in the deck, but the way I'm playing Sisay now, like it's okay. Like I find it okay to draw cards because I'm playing like a more interactive package and trying to like not be afraid to draw into my win pieces and things like that, because that's just sometimes the position you get in playing that deck, and you just kind of had to start jamming and finding ways to protect it. So I got a Ristic Study down on turn two and then just passed it to Abby. She had played the Arcane Signet and I think it just kind of passed, so I at least got two card draws off of that. And then Phil just proceeded to pop off in his turn. Just presented essentially like an infinite ruthless technomancer line with Jolly Balloon Man, and then eventually like started like digging down and we're like, okay, we're like, where do you win? And so he like dug down to the Goblin Bombardment and like, okay, yeah, you got it. So I never saw a turn three out of that, and Tim Dargo got it, and congratulations to Phil because he's been on the deck for a while now and he's a really good pilot on it. And yeah, like I said, spoiler alert, he won the whole event with Dardu, so that's pretty cool.
No, my very first pod, I was sitting with two people that I like and they're friends, and so it was Cole on Sammy, the Affinity Sammy Boros, but it was like a turbo list in seat one. Trevor was on Derevi in seat two. There was a Marnius in seat three, and then I was in seat four on Zur. And this game was just weird. It was very funny, but like it was really weird. Cole just starts like going early. Like it was, I mean, it was impressive to watch the deck do its thing, but he was just like casting a lot of stuff. I kept a hand that was kind of, I mean, it was good. Like I was very happy with it, but I had the ability to develop like an early Esper Sentinel, but I ended up just holding up my mana because I had an Enlightened Tutor in hand also. So I in step of the Marnius's turn 2, I enlighten tutor, and then I go Esper Sentinel and fish, and then I'm like, go ahead. So then at that point, like Cole's debating on whether or not to feed it, but he needs to like be able to push. And I didn't have like I don't think I had very many cards in hand that could really like I had a lot of like on board interaction, and I had like one counter spell, but again I tapped out like a dummy. But you know, but I knew there was another control player at the table, so I was like, hey, listen, like we can make some stuff happen. Eventually, it does get back around, so I get to my third turn, and then at that point, again, I'm just trying to like develop a little bit, not doing anything crazy. And I mean, with control players, these games are going to go long because I mean, even technically, Marnius is supposed to be control. Shocker, it was not. They played like the charismatic conqueror, and then like slamming necropotence, and like now they've got lifelinky vampires, and they're like digging through the deck. Like it was pretty crazy. So Cole eventually slams a Myrail down, which is like the other abolisher-ish type of effect. And then like people start talking. I'm talking to Trevor, and Trevor's like, "Do you have anything?" And I was like, "I have interaction. I just don't have the interaction for this specific piece." And so I essentially make a deal with Trevor. Like he has Pact of Negation. That's it. And he has one food because he had the cabbage merchant out. He was one food shy of being able to pay for the Pact. And so I knew that Cole was going to push harder on his turn, even if it didn't like resolve. So I wasn't worried about Trevor getting some food, but I was like, if nothing happens, I'll cast some spells. That way you can actually like make some mana, and then that way you can pay for the Pact. So then we make that deal. Well, his push gets stopped, but he just kind of digs a little bit deeper even after the Myro got stopped, and he finds like an Aether Flux reservoir, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. So then he just casts a couple spells. He gets his life total to like 53, I think is what it was. We go into Marnius's turn, and Marnius, I think, on Instep had like flashed in a Bowmaster, and so they were going to start pinging down Cole's life total, so Cole couldn't kill them if they tried to go for it. And then there was deals made where I was like, okay, I won't take card draw if you'll, obviously like keep this at bay. Well, then the Marnius player starts just going for it and is basically like, no, I don't want to ping that down because I would rather him like be able to stop another win just in case. Turns out, I think that they were running Angel's Grace. I'm not 100% sure, so I think that they were like, it'll be fine. So they start going. I'm like, okay, well, am I good to draw my cards? So then I think they start pinging my life total down, which I'm like, that's fine, whatever. So I just keep drawing cards, keep drawing cards, keep drawing cards. And then they just like rip full send necro, go to like, I don't remember what it was, like 4, and went into their, and then they slammed a Voice of Victory before they were going to go to end step. And I was like, that's fine, because they had an emergent zone. And I Orms chanted them specifically. So I was like, okay, if you're going to win, you're going to win and clean up. Well, they go to clean up. They start to, they cast like Born Upon a Win. And then they were getting ready to like try and win the game basically right there. And Cole is like, well, I can kill you at any point with the Aether Flux. And the Marnius player shows a Trick Bind. And it's like, if you do that, I'll Trick Bind it. Like, it won't matter. And I was like, So then I show Otawara to bounce the silence effect. And I was like, I'll counter your stuff. And then also, being an Esper deck that runs Necro, I know that mana's tight when you're in instep, even if the game's like later. So I basically start doing the math, and I'm counting everything. And I see that they've got 2 black floating. I know that they've got a couple more cards in hand. And I see this like 1 land that's over there. And I'm like, you don't have the mana to Trick Bind and Thassa out. Because I know for a fact that 2 black is going to be for Demonic Tutor. Because I asked to see like the Exile Pile and everything else. I was like, that's the only tutor that's going to put it straight to your hand. I was like, you don't have it. I was like, if you Trick Bind, you don't have blue. And then the player just kind of looks at me and is like, yeah, you're right. And then they start talking about a draw. They're like, well, I can't stop both of y'all from basically like stopping me. So they're like, what I could do is like, if you go to Otawara, like if you do nothing, then I'm just going to like tutor Thassa, win the game. The moment you try to Otawara, then he just shoots you in the face with Aether Flux Reservoir. And then he's like, if not, he's like, if I obviously trick bind the Otawara, then like same thing, he shoots you. If I don't agree to a draw, he shoots me. So like, let's just take a draw here. And I'm setting it like looking at a fat group of cards, being like, if I get back to my turn, I'm winning the game, and I'm like, oh my god, why did I should never have just let the voice resolve. I think in my brain I was like, oh, it's fine, like let the voice resolve, give him some confidence, I guess, to like just sculpt a good hand that doesn't have a lot of interaction and then just push.
Yeah.
And that was very stupid. So I ended up going from like, hey, I'm in a good spot to like win the game when it gets back to my turn, because I had like Cavern, I had GA. I was like, I'll be fine, and I had Angel's Grace. So even if Cole was like, I'm gonna shoot you in the face, I'm like, dude, okay. So like, I was like looking great, and then I just, yep. So that was one of those moments where it was kind of one of those like, how do you lose this game? And I just didn't think through it enough, and so that's where we ended
Yeah.
up at. But it's all good. But it
Do
was a
you,
fun game, and so we ended up taking a draw in that game.
so what do you feel like your takeaway then from that game is?
Takeaway in that game. I
Yeah.
think the game was played great. I think I played great up until letting the silence effect resolve. I had a way to stop it. I think that what I should have done is I should have just bounced it to begin with. I don't think I don't think that him like if I counter it, then obviously like I don't think that he had enough like interaction at that point to stop me from countering the voice. And then whenever he goes to combo and instep, I'm fine. Like it is what it is. We're
Yeah.
good. Um, and then at that point, I'm pretty sure if it gets back to my turn, I'm still gonna be fine, because I had left a lot of this out. I had imposter mech Cole's Sammy, so I had like affinity, and I had a smothering tithe out. So I had like so many artifacts. All my spells were just gonna be relegated to like the pips. So I was
Yeah.
like one mana Valley Flood Caller, like just everything was just gonna be like super cheap. And I had Valley Flood Caller in hand too. I had a lot of cards in hand, but I think that was where I screwed up. Is I should have, in my mind, like I said, I think I was gonna try and be like, oh, gotcha, and then I was gonna be able to like get to my turn, and I didn't want to have to fight through like a ton of interaction. But when my silence effect resolved targeting him, I should have just been like, why do I not just counter this right now? And then that gives me full agency to just interact wherever I have to interact whenever he's in cleanup. It was just stupid on my
Yeah.
part. I literally don't know why I didn't do it. I guess, again, it was just being like, oh, like I want you to feel more secure. Don't sculpt the hand of just perfect interaction when you go to clean up. I've played Necro decks before, like again, in Esper. Even if he keeps too much interaction, he doesn't have the mana to get there. So it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter. So yeah, I think that I blundered that. That was all on me. And so that was my fault. But yeah, I think that that was what should have happened. I silenced him. It did resolve, so clearly didn't have the interaction for it. I should have just immediately countered the voice. I'm like, cool. And I think for some reason I was holding up that mana to be able to, or I was holding up those counters to like be able to defend it on my turn. But shocker, if you don't get another turn, it doesn't matter anyway. So is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I think for me it would have been the only my game ended so fast it almost doesn't even matter. I think that the hand I kept was okay. Like it wasn't necessarily a Sisse hand, but it did have like at least three pieces. Like I was able to hit like at least three out of the five for Wooburg on turn one. I had Ragavan, so I had a legendary and I had some card draw with like a little bit of, a few things scattered in. So it was an okay hand. I think what I should have done is instead of grabbing the fish right away, like probably should have talked with Abby a little bit more on like, hey, what are we doing here? To kind of get through the Timna Dargo stuff. And what do I need to grab? Because, like, I think I messaged in one of our chats that day, and like Jake had said something like I should have grabbed the deafening silence. Well, the hard part about grabbing a deafening silence over a fish in that scenario is that if I grab a deafening silence at that table, I basically just completely lock out Abby. If she tries to develop in the early turn, and then that almost doesn't matter at times against Timna Dargo, because then they just pivot into like creature combo route. And so it's just like, even if I have a deafening silence on board, they have a way around it. So
Did
I don't know what I could have grabbed differently.
with the Jolly Balloon Man loop that he was doing with the Technomancer, did he not because I'm guessing like he had to keep comboing with the Dargo, correct?
Yes.
Did you, because you had heuristic study out, did you not draw through most of your deck when this was happening, or did he like silence beforehand?
Yeah, so that was kind of the other part. I think that I probably should have just kept drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. I don't remember if I had enough. I probably did have enough available mana on board to like cast a silence if I had drawn into it. He had an emergence zone on board, but the way I've kind of tailored my deck, like it is a little bit more interactive, and I am playing Born Upon a Win in Sisay now. So what I probably could have done is if I had actually taken the draws, but I think I was already ready for that game to just kind of be done and over with. I'll be honest. I was like, fucking hate being stuck in a 3-man pod, and like I needed to go to the bathroom. I was ready to be done, and so yeah, I could have just like drawn more cards, seen more cards if he was just like not going to pay. And I think he made a comment about it. I was just like, I'm done with this anyway. So yeah, you got it. Um, I think, and I think something that came to mind for me as you were talking about yours, I wonder, how do you think it would have been different? Because this is a conversation I've had a lot with Kellen this week on like not being so quick to show the pieces that you have in your hand as far as interaction, which that's going to be like a continued theme for me in this event. It actually kind of worked out in my favor a little bit. I just kind of jumped the gun on it. I'll explain when we get there. But how do you think it would have been in that instance if you had let Cole and the Marnius player just kind of fight? Like if Cole was threatening to utilize the Aetherflux to target the Marnius player, and they trick, and then that's whenever he uses the trick bind. Like, and then once that goes, that part of the stack resolves, you then Otawara the voice. Do you think that if you had held back on the Otawara instead of showing it then and letting that interaction just happen, do you think you would have seen another turn?
Yeah, I think that I should have hid information better, and I think I could have still got out of that game with a win because we had plenty of time left. I think that what I probably should do in that instance, because again, I'm trying to be better about this. I've like really tunnel visioned on the silence effects, and I was talking to Zach about that, about how awesome it is to be able to win over top of somebody. And in that situation, I've fixed both of the issues. I've got mana galore because Sammy is not only like I've got Tithe, and with Sammy being on board, it's discounting all of my stuff. So I'm literally just paying like essentially 1 mana for everything. My
Right.
Tithe was 1 mana because I cloned Sammy first. Affinity was like 4, and so all I had to do was hit the white pip. 1 mana Smothering Tide. Turns out it's pretty fucking busted. But
Yep.
um, and I had card draw. I had the Esper. I had Fish, and I had well, I think that might have been it. I think it was Esper and Fish.
Esper Sentinel that was also reducing the spells
Yes,
you were casting.
yes. So like it was nuts. I was feeling fantastic in that instance, and I don't think I mean, I'm pretty sure I could have politicked there with Cole and been like, yeah, you will get another turn or something to that extent. Because I had Valley Flood Caller. I easily, in that moment, think I could have been like, hey, Cole, like, I will gladly let you see another turn. Like, do your thing, whatever. Like, if you'll just, let's get out of this situation and then we'll figure it out from there. And I don't think I would have had to do anything to, like, try and screw him because I think that he had. I don't remember how many cards he had, but I mean if he kills him with Aetherflux, there's no way you're gonna combo enough to get yourself back up to that 50 to then shoot me in the face. And if you do, I'm holding on to Angel's Grace. So I know it's a
Yeah.
dumb card, whatever, but so I'm still fine. And I really do think that I could have got out of that game with the win. I just think that, man, it sucks, but I can see why a lot of people get so frustrated with like the draw meta that they call it that we're in, because I think that right now people are very quick to take draws. I just played 2 games
Yeah.
for fun. I mean, obviously they all treat it like tournament games, and I like that. But we just played 2 games for fun with patrons. Like I just played those, and both of them ended in draws. And thinking back to it, I don't think either one of them should have ended in a draw. Really, I think that I think in reality, we could have stopped what like the active players like push was going and like what was happening. And one of them, it was me. I was the one that got stopped. I still like even after somebody was like they show up, one of them showed a pact and couldn't pay for it, and that was the last piece that they had to stop me. I had like cast breach. They had already stopped me like multiple times. I had cast voice, they countered it. I had cast Grand Abolition, they countered it. I had cast they had bounced my Smothering Tide. They had Professional Facebreaker on board. I had Bergie on board. I had like I was cooking, dude. It was crazy. I already had the LED in yard. I had brain freeze in hand. I'm basically just need white, and then I could technically have just brain freeze myself and go Savines, but I just didn't. I knew I wasn't gonna have the pips, and in that game, I literally, they were like, "Oh, offer a draw," and I was like, "I don't think I take a draw here. I think I'm fine. I think yes, I'm not gonna get to win on my turn, and sure, somebody has like several cards in hand. I think I just like redevelop with the mana that I still have available from all this comboing and stuff. I just pass the turn, and then I think I just get there on my next turn, or if you're not careful, I just get there on your turn. So like, good luck. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But so many people are so quick to take a draw, and I've gotten really bad about that. I think that's something that I'm really going to work on is not just immediately being like, sure, I'll take a draw. And also, like you said, not being willing to just show immediately interaction unless somebody's like, listen, I will not cast this unless like you know what I mean? However, we need to negotiate it. Like, but yeah, there was like same thing in that one of those games. Like after we played with Kellen and them, and Kellen was like, stop saying stuff like that. You're giving ideas about windows. Um, I immediately was like, that's actually really good. And then one of the players was trying to say, like, if you'll show me some interaction, I won't push here. And I was like, I do have it, but I'm not going to show you because I don't want you to have an idea of like how to play around it. And they were like, oh, well. And then it was funny because they did the exact same thing to me the next game. I was like, if you just show me, I'll stop my push and I'll just redevelop and I'll pass. And they were like, no, I don't want to show it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna push. And I cast it. And they tried to like, I told you, they tried to like bait me by
Yeah.
having like uh they were trying to show a blue card, and they're like, I can pitch it to this. But then whenever
Oh yeah, yeah.
I cast my spells in a certain way, and they ended up using a different card instead, I was like, you're lying. That is not what that card is. I was like, that's a pact negation. You don't want to cast it because you ain't got the mana for it. And then whenever I cast the breach and they showed the pact, I was like, yeah. So I do think
So
that I'm taking stuff away from these games. This is the first time I feel like I've truly been like really intentional about trying to get better. I left from this event. I don't want to spoil anything from anybody, but I left from this event and immediately sought out coaching, and I've been doing sessions and like just trying to take stuff away. And I already feel like it's helped me be a better player.
yeah. So you ended your first round in a draw. I ended my first round in a loss. So let's go on to round two. So for round two for me, I was in seat three, and it was a Rogthras at one, Sean, one of our locals, in seat two on Arkham, me on Sisay at three, and a Rao pilot in seat four. And so I kept a hand, I kept a kind of a slow-ish, like more responsible ish hand, not so much like interaction wise. It was kind of odd. So I don't remember the exact pieces that I had in the opener, but I remember as far as like the important parts of it. So gets into my turn. I'm able to develop like I think a command tower, Chromox. I actually pitched a delighted halfling to it. Did Mana Vault, cast Iorth on turn one. So I'm like, okay, so like I have an untapper, I have essentially a combo piece down, and in my hand I actually kept an Ashiok Nightmare Adept, or no. I think that's the correct one. Whatever the one is that prevents people from searching. That's
Yeah.
kind of a newer piece in my deck, so I've been
Is it
testing
actually
it
like
out, and it
Dreamweaver?
actually, yeah, I think that might be it. I don't know. There's so many planeswalkers, it's hard to fucking keep up with. But like, so goes through the rotation. Ral pilot, he casts Ral on one. Sean like dropped some rocks, I think, on one. Rogthras pilot dropped like like maybe like a Dork, Rograk, and like something else on one. So like he was sitting in a really good spot on the first rotation. Gets back to him, continues to develop. Sean actually casts like a Phyrexia Metamorph, copying my Iorth. I'm like, you cheeky motherfucker. Like, that's so good. There's so many good synergies that I wasn't thinking about whatever that happened. And like I laid it out kind of later on as the game progressed. It got back to me. And that's whenever like when we recorded this the first time. And like I said, there's gonna be a continued theme of showing your pieces. Um I had mentioned I feel like I had the little Zach Adler voice talking in the back of my head, where it's just like, hey, how's the table feeling about this? Like, how do we do this? And so I did show the Ashiok to the table and kind of explain my reasoning. I was just like, if I play it, it kind of locks Sean out because his is just nothing but activation and tutoring. So it does slow him down. Ral, like, I don't, I, my instant thought is if this resolves is essentially like just going ahead and minus targeting you because I just want to get cards out of your deck before you kind of pop off. But my worry is that now that the Rogthras board is kind of developed, I feel like it's just going to turn into a king making situation. And I did it a lot more just to kind of, I guess, gauge the reaction of the table. And like when that happened, Sean was just like, "Well, that fucking sucks for me, but it is what it is. I almost can't do anything about it." So I was like, "Okay, you can't really interact with it, but I don't want to lock the mono blue player out here, so that way we can actually take care of the board presence of the Rogthras." Rogthras was just like, I'm mostly just gonna put on activations. Like I'm not doing a whole lot of tutoring and things like that anyway. And so I was like, okay, so he doesn't care if this piece comes down or not. That's cool to know. Route Pilot sitting in seat 4 was just like, I know I'm going essentially like I know I'm going into my second turn, but I'm not pushing. I'm not pushing for a win here. And I was like, okay, I feel better about that. So I put the Ashiok back in hand. I continue to develop. I think I cast Sisay and I passed the turn. So Ral, he goes into his turn, maybe drops a land and like passes. It's like maybe a land or a rock and pass. I was like, okay, that seems kind of odd play pattern for a Ral deck because you're used to seeing them go off by turn 2. Rogthras gets into his turn, continues to develop a lot, so on, so on, passes turn. Sean, he casts Arkham, and at this point, he has the Iorith, the Phyrexian Metamorph that's an Iorith, a Blink Moth, and Arkham. And essentially, it gets back to his turn, and all he has to do is put one activation on the stack, and he's essentially like just there. Like he does tap Arkham down, targeting the Iorith Phyrexian Metamorph, maintain priority, be able to tap down the Iorith to untap the Arkham, so that way he can instantly go and grab like the encroaching Mycospawn or Mycosynth or Mind Over Matter or things like that. He has the land he can animate and turn into another land, and then essentially like that's how he gets to that point where he does have both the Mind Over Matter and the encroaching to turn Arkham into an artifact at that point and go get the One Ring win. So I see that that's already like on board. And I'm like, okay, at least we have this turn rotation to kind of deal with that. And I have two other blue players that can kind of help me with this. Um, and so it gets into my turn, and I kind of say the same thing. I show the Ashiok again, and I'm just like, this is how I'm seeing the game right now. Like, how are we feeling about this piece? Because it's either I need to keep him in the game to interact with you, or or essentially, like, if we're not interacting with his board, he just wins here. And so I guess in my thought process for it, it was just like, hey, let's kind of keep the Arkham deck at bay and utilize the other two players to kind of like control the pacing of that, because we do have to do something about the Route board before they, or not the Route board, the Arkham board before they get back into Sean's turn. And so it was still kind of the same thing of just like, hey, this doesn't really impact us too much. Yes, it completely locks him out, but I think we have pieces we can deal with it. So again, I was utilizing that to just like gain a bunch of information. I was like, okay, cool. And so I think that I put it back in hand. I cast like maybe another creature, and I pass the turn essentially. Gets the Rala player's turn again, kind of like a land maybe, or I don't even think a land. I think they just like played maybe another rock or something and then passed turn. Like they weren't flipping Rala that game. They weren't casting a bunch of spells on their turn, things like that. So it was just odd to see that coming out of Ral, but I think he kept like a more responsible hand in seat 4, as far as like, hey, let's like keep a lot of interaction and try to control the pacing of the game, because we have this grindy, like really develops in the early stage of the game deck at seat 1, and you have these two like activate and combo off decks in 2 and 3. So I think they just kept a more responsible hand for being in seat 4. This is where the Rogthras player like essentially is just like, yeah, I'm gonna push. And so they proceeded to push. They had resolved like a Cloud of Fairies. They got an untap. They were attempting to cast a Timur Sabertooth, and at that point, we are just like, oh, that's a red flag. We can't let that happen. And so, with it all on the stack, that's whenever the Rao player starts interacting. He and I are kind of talking. Sean is a little bit out of it. The only thing he had in hand was a Born Upon the Wind, where he could potentially see another but it got buried in the stack between the Rao pilot and the Rogthras player. And I almost feel like I kind of got baited into doing an activation. Like during this rotation, I had Wooburg to where I could actually do an activation for 2. And the only thing that was relevant was a Tataru because I was able to, like, at least for myself, see another card. And if I hit like a Force of Will or a Mindbreak Trap or anything like that, like I think I had another blue card in hand I could have potentially pitched to be able to interact in the counter war. And then I was kind of talking between Sean and the Rao pilot, and Rao was just like, I already have my commander out. I have the potential to hit both like deflecting SWAT and fierce. Like, so you might want to let me have the card draw. And I was like, that makes total sense. So I let him have the card draw. And like, it was like a few pieces of interaction later. Like he was shuffling through his cards and I looked over and he bled through the deflecting SWAT. And he had shown me the piece that he drew off of the Tataru. So I was like, oh, fuck, he already had the SWAT anyway. So I just gave him another card. And it like eventually got to this point where like we kind of stopped a little bit of the push. And the Rao pilot had thought that the Rogthras pilot was just going to be done because the only card he had left in hand, and I think the Rao pilot forgot about this. The last piece that he had in hand was a Candelabra, but like he had like Lotus Cobra and like Valley Flood Caller and a Enduring Vitality out, and so he had a lot of mana to work with, even if it didn't look like it at the time. And so the Rao pilot actually casts Intuition somewhere in the stack. We get to that point, and he picks Dart, Untimely Malfunction, and Snap, targets the Rogthras player, thinking that like he would pick a piece to try and help stop either me or Sean. And because like the Snap or the Untimely Malfunction would have actually dealt with either one of our board states and probably made it to where we weren't going to win on our turns. Rogthras player picks Dart. And we're all just kind of like, whoa, what? Hold up. We got to get through. Like, if you're not continuing to push here, like you're pretty much out right now. Like, it's probably not the best to keep pushing. We got to do something about this turn for the Arkham, because if we don't, he untaps and he wins. And so Rogthras player proceeds to still pick Dart, cast the Candelabra, and keeps trying to go. And like at this point, are all out of interaction, but he himself has gotten to a point where he can only like essentially like he's getting a landfall trigger. So has 1 mana in the pool. Thrasios is reduced to 1 for the activation. The Lotus Cobra is out. So any land that he hits and puts into play, it's paying for itself. And it's just like, oh, okay. And like he's trying to find a way to keep going and he doesn't. And like, so that's whenever I made the comment, I was just like, if you do continue to push, like you are going to fizzle out and it's just going to be over here to the Arkham. Do you have any removal in the deck that you could probably like if it's a Chain of Vapor into the Flood Maul, whatever. And he's like, yeah, he tries to dig for it, doesn't get it. Unfortunately, that was the end of the round. So Sean never even saw another turn. And I kind of pulled him aside afterwards. And I was just like, even before I said anything about you having win, I think you knew that you had win on board. And I know you were just trying to kind of sit back a little bit and not kind of throw the attention to you. But when we get down to that last 10 minutes or so, and maybe you feel as though like someone is doing I don't know if it's intentional slow play or anything like that, just start asking for game actions, because that's kind of what I was noticing, is that like the Rogthras player was like taking a lot of time, like really thinking in between. And like I think that turn almost was like a 25-ish minute turn. Like it was a very long turn. And I was like, when it hits that 10-minute mark and you just have that one turn that you need to get back to you, start asking for game actions, or at least like a quicker pace in game actions. And if they kind of fail to do that, get the judge involved, be able to like have the judge come over and kind of keep that in check and things like that. So that way, I mean, that can make a difference in seeing a turn. Like even if the remainder of that 10 minutes, they take 8 minutes of it to do it, you have 2 minutes at least to get into your turn, and you have win on board where you can win in your upkeep before anything else even happens. So that was kind of my piece of advice to him, and kind of almost anyone out there. Like if you are worried about like, not calling a judge over, or aren't sure if someone's like intentionally slow playing, like don't be afraid to communicate things. And then like do like that is kind of a big difference between like having to draw in that situation and winning the game if you have the win right then and there. So that was kind of the takeaway for that game. I think I played and politicked okay in that, and I think that, yeah, I mean, it was a fine game, but I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway is just like making sure that you're aware of what's going on. And like if you feel like you don't have to get to a point where like you're just like aggressively pushing for like every 5 seconds make a game action, but just be mindful of your own time and be mindful of your opponent's time. And if it feels like they're taking too much time on things, and again that makes a difference between you seeing a turn or not, don't be afraid to call a judge.
Yeah, I have a story like that for the later, but no, my round two was this was the one that I took a loss in, which sucked. But it was Gwenham in seat one, me in seat two, Matt who got second place in the event. He was on in seat three, and then a Rogthrast player in seat four, and it ended up like the game was just really interesting. Like in this game, I kept a gemstone, so it looked very similar to my previous game where I had like Esper Fish, but instead of having to do it on turn two, my opener was like turn one, Esper Sentinel and Fish. So I landed both of those, and I was like, dude, we're cooking. This is great. Matt, he even says, he was like, I'm going to keep this just to see what I can make happen with it. And it was a turn two, One Ring. And he top decks one of the keys and immediately becomes a turn one ring, and then lands a bauble, completely shuts the Gwenham out of the game. Like at that point, Gwenham's just screwed. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Well, then the game kind of develops. Nothing really like super eventful happens. Rogthrast doesn't really do much. They were just like the bauble screwed them, so they were just trying their best to like try and stay relevant in the game. Eventually got to the point where they had Thrasios out. The Gwenham just kept putting creatures down randomly, and finally landed like they had like a really weird interaction where like a creature like Sax, they can tap another one to make a ton of mana, and then they land like a Doom Whisperer to be able to at least dig if the bauble goes away. It comes back to my turn, and I completely like I kept, what did I do? I think I let the fish die and developed a Rhystic, and somebody was like, oh, it's tied, and I was like, no, I was like, I think it's Rhystic, because I was like, Matt is like, yes, Matt's drawing lots of cards, but like knowing what I had in my hand, I was like, I don't know if I can stop Matt right here, so like I need to be able to see more cards to be able to stop Matt if Matt does do anything crazy. And so I have a tutor, and I go and I use this tutor because I think it was an imp seal, so I didn't have the ability to like flash it out. I had to like imp seal it. And I was thinking, like, what do I get right here with this tutor? And I was thinking, like, okay, I know what I've seen the Joy Red deck do the thing. I know that it's like a very creature heavy type, like, the actual combo pieces are like creatures and they do a lot of stuff. So I was worried about creatures. I probably should have just went and got a fucking silence effect, but I did not do that. And then also I found out that even if I got the silence effect, it wouldn't have mattered because Matt was holding on to like mental misstep. But I went and got Amphibian Downpour and I put it on top. And then I passed it to Matt. Matt starts drawing or doing card stuff. I draw into the Downpour. Well, Matt lands a damn Hexing Squelcher. And then it creates this awful situation to where I can't counter the Squelcher. There's already a bauble in play. So all of our free stuff gets countered. So if like Force of Will, MBT, all that stuff counters. Matt, however, his spells can't be countered. So if he plays one of those spells, it attempts to be countered, and then Squelcher says no.
That's so
So,
stupid.
oh,
That's
it
so
fucking
stupid.
sucked, dude. And so I was like, awesome. So I basically have to shut the Squelcher off right now, or we're fucking cooked. So I go and I show the table the amphibian downpour, and the Rog Thras is like, no, you don't use that right here. And I'm like, okay, I won't use it right here. And then Matt plays a kitten, like a displacer kitten. And I
Yeah.
just like was like, hey, I think this is the right spot to use this now, because if not, this is never getting through to the Squelcher. And then they were like, no, I don't think you use it right here. And I was like, okay. And then one of the players was like, yeah, I think it's silence. I think you need silence. And then Matt just shows the interaction. He's like, silence wouldn't resolve anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I was like, all right, okay, cool. And I asked, I was like, hey, were you holding on to that the whole time? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, fuck, okay. So Kitten comes down. Matt proceeds to just start doing some crazy shit, flickering stuff, doing untaps, making tons of mana, and then just proceeds to like draw the deck out with the One Ring, or like getting through some of it with the One Ring, but lands I think it was Imposter Mech, or no, Phyrexian Metamorph. Sorry, Metamorph. But it came down as a Doom Whisperer, and then starts paying 2 life to like dig through the deck until it eventually he finds like the 2 cards that he wants, taps the One Ring, draws both of
Yeah.
them, proceeds to combo. And at that point, I felt like I think the correct spot there was to hit the Squelcher with the downpour. Again, I would have been very limited on mana, but at that point, it makes it to where, yes, my free interaction really isn't going to work, but also Matt can't just continue to like go crazy and develop also with free stuff. So like
Yeah.
maybe, because it did become relevant. Like he was casting some free rocks, make some mana, whatever. He probably still would have got there anyway. I don't know. I think my tutor target was bad, I guess. But I let the table tell me like when to interact, which ended up just being never. They were just like, oh, it's too late now. And I'm like, you told me earlier it was too early, and now you're saying it's too late. Like I asked it like every time there was a game action taken. That doesn't make sense. Like there had to have been a correct time. Y'all never said there was. Like what the fuck?
Well, let me ask you this, because you made the comment a little bit ago on like, you feel like you've played against that Joyra deck like a few times now. Do you think the rest of the table had played against it enough to actually know when to interact? Because I think that if in that instance, like, that's kind of a moment where like if you do have that discussion on like, hey, do you guys know how this deck works? And then they're like, no, then that kind of makes you the one to go, okay, then I have to kind of make decisions on my own here. And I just had to be confident in that because I've seen the deck enough. I know what it's at least attempting to do. And so, yeah, I think that that's kind of like one of those moments where it's just like, maybe it's not necessarily a thing of like your opponents don't have your best interest in mind, because like if they don't like help you out in that instance, you're all losing anyway. But if the people in your pod are not informed on what is going on, and you have at least a little bit more like knowledge on what's happening, that's just your moments where you just have to be like, okay, I got to send this counter spell or send this silence or things like that, and at least make an effort, because I think what I'm seeing is correct. Like it's leading into the win, and I need to stop it before it continues to snowball.
Yeah. Thinking back, honestly, I think the correct thing there, I don't know that was right, but just force him to like have to use it early. I was worried about Jorah, obviously, but because
Yeah.
I've seen the deck win with Jorah, but there was no way to give Jorah haste. So I think that I don't think that it really would have mattered that much. I think honestly, probably the correct play there, if I'm being real honest, was probably just go get the touch the spirit realm and just channel, hit the One Ring to where One Ring does nothing.
Yeah.
But you live and you learn. I just grabbed the wrong thing because I was worried about more like on creature stuff. I wasn't thinking about the fact that it's like you've already got the key. Like you just need some stuff to untap the One Ring and you're gonna go off. So I don't know. I like I said, I kind of blundered that. And again, not all that was on them. I fucked that up too. That was my fault. But I do agree with you. That's actually a good point. And I'm glad that you say that because I didn't look at it from that perspective. Yeah, I think just asking the table, or again, kind of like they were talking about like pregame, like, hey, do we know what this deck does? Hey, do we know what this deck does?
Hmm.
Do y'all know what Zerd does? Like, kind of having that discussion, like, not just singling everybody else out. It was like, hey, do y'all know what this does? Do y'all know what that does? And then that way we all like kind of go in on equal footing or like more equal footing. So yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. But Matt got the win. It was really cool. I mean, his deck's really interesting, but it's basically just like, is it Arkham? It just
Yeah.
doesn't tutor. It just throws stuff into play. But yeah, the what ended up happening was basically slams a God Pharaohs. I did make him work for that shit because I like cast. I started to like just keep trying to like do some stupid stuff, and at one point he killed the table by making infinite mana with a chromatic ori, and then casting. I think what was it like Blue Suns or something or Blue Sun Zenith something whatever blue whatever.
Target player draws X cards.
Yes, and so he
Yeah.
drew. He was gonna draw everybody out, but I had already Angels Graced like a dummy. I should have
Ah,
held that shit. So he was like, I don't feel the need to target you, so I'm just gonna have to kill you a different way, and had to keep digging to like try and find the win. But he just like drew everybody out at instant speed. And what I should have done is I should have let that shit hit the stack and be like Angel Grace, but I had already done it earlier because I didn't know that that was gonna be a thing. But yeah, and then I would
right.
have been able to have my whole deck in my hand, and then we have more options at that point. But um, again, you live and you learn, man. It just is what it
Right.
is. The Magic's fucking hard. and,
Yeah.
but he
Oh
ended
yeah.
up killing us with God Pharaoh's instep trigger. It puts the lose a life, and
Yeah.
then he taps the the one that can double up triggers, the lithoform engine. Is that right?
Yeah.
Taps
Yeah.
lithoform,
And just like continues to untap lithoform
filigree.
to make it copies of the triggered ability.
Yeah. So then I just
Yeah.
lose like 1,000 life, life loss, not damage. And then goes into instep and then into cleanup, and then I die because the grace wears off. But
Yep.
is what it is.
It is what it is. So I took a draw, you took a loss. Moving on to round three. So round three was an interesting one for me. It was probably the Gwenum pilot that you played against because I think there's only one Gwenum player there. So is Gwenum in seat one, which I was a little bit nervous about because I was like, I know this deck tries to go fast. And then I was in seat two. Lumra in seat three, and Trevi Derevi, one of our locals, in seat four. And so I was just like, okay, I'm in a pot again, stuck between essentially two turbo decks, but at least I have another blue player here and one that I know is going to try and interact a lot more on the stack and play responsibly, especially sitting in seat four. I even asked him at one point, like before we were doing our mulligans, I was just like, are we gonna be responsible? And he's like, I'm in seat four. What do you think, Chase? And I was like, okay, that informs my decision. So I didn't keep a responsible hand whatsoever because I know Trevor and he's going to play control and he is going to try to slow things down the best he can. And so I was like, even if he was trying to bluff, I know him. So and for those of you that are been fans of the channel for a while, Trevor has been someone that we've had gameplay with. He's our Yam pilot. He's played Derevi like maybe one or two times on the channel before. So go check out those gameplays. That if you're just a big fan of the Yam or like Derevi, he's been on there with us, and he's also been on our car ride episode from last year too. So that's our pod. And I start mulligans. I'm like, well, this seven shit. This seven shit. I go to six. And I'm like, this isn't okay, but it was a responsible hand. It had like, I think a swan song and like either a mental misstep or another or a fluster storm or something like that. And I was like, I have and a silence. And I was like, I can definitely slow down the table, but it doesn't have a game plan. Like it forces me to play control. And at this point, like Craig is standing like next to me and he's looking at my stuff and he looks at me and goes, I can't tell you what to do, but I mean, I'd send it. And I was like, no, I know this deck well enough. I think I'm gonna go see a five. So I went down to five and it was just pure gas. It was like land, bird, badger, mole, deafening silence. And I was just like, okay, I have a piece that can hit the board and slow down at least the Gwenum player. And technically, Trevor, because if he continues to try to develop and interact and things like that, I can potentially slow him down a little bit. I don't think it impacts the Lumra player that much. And then I have a turn one play, and I have Badger Mole Cub, and that means I have a lot of color fixing. And so I think I kept like a command tower and like maybe a Misty as my lands. I was like, okay, cool. Like this is good. So I go into draw. My turn one play, it's like land, bird, pass. But I draw into a fish. And I'm just like, okay, we have mana, we have card draw engine, we're getting back into this game. And my draws were stupid. I was like hitting, like, I would go from like that turn one at birds, turn two, badger mole, and fish down. And like, I was kind of doing the same thing I had done in the previous game where I showed the deafening silence. I was just like, how are we feeling about this right now? And the Loomer player was just like, I'm absolutely fucking fine with that. And I was like, of course you would be. Like your creature combo stuff and your lands, like it doesn't impact you. And like really the only person that shuts out is Gwynnm. And it's kind of interesting because they kept a no land hand with like a turn one Chromox and Mana Vault and passed. And I was like, okay, so no Gwynnm coming down on one. What are we doing here? Eventually come to find out they had kept an oppo hand, and I think they were just like trying to wait and bait me into an activation. And so they were playing like they were trying to be responsible and play control in that moment. And I was like, okay, that is what it is. But I had developed so much at that point, it almost didn't matter. Like I had like by the end of it, like each draw, it was like fish. And then like on turn two, turn three, enduring vitality with like four creatures on board. I think I was able to cast Sisay in that same turn. Something had happened. I think that after I cast the Sisay, it goes in the Loomer player's turn. They go to fetch or they go to tutor for a land off of something. And that's when the Oppo comes down. So that way the Gwynn player can actually like snag a land to put things on board at this point. Trevor continues to develop. He's got like, I think Esper Sentinel and maybe even like Wan Shi Tong and like a few other pieces. And I'm like, okay, he's seeing a lot of card draw, but he doesn't have a whole lot of ramp. It eventually gets to the point where in my draws, like I have a ton of mana on board. And I have like 3 or 4 cards in hand. I have a Flash Thompson in hand with Sisay on board where it's not buffed whatsoever. And the only thing stopping me from winning is this opposition agent that's down. Goes into my turn, draw an Ottawara. And I'm like, oh, there we go. We have the piece we need. And prior to me drawing that Ottawara, Trevor had shown me his hand. Like he just flat out showed me his hand. He's like, I can't do too much here. Like I can't like present a win or anything like that. And I was like, okay, cool. And so in my turn, I'd seen the types of interaction that he had. So in that turn, I was like, how are we feeling about this? How are we feeling about the deafening silence now? And Loomer player was still just like, I'm okay with it. Like it doesn't bother me. And then Trevor was like, I don't like it, but I can't really do much about it. One player was like, pass on it. So I cast the deafening silence. So in my head, I was going, okay, if I can like see like slow them down, make it to where they can't really interact with me as much. Gwynnm player is tapped out. He can't recast the opposition agent. Trevor, I just saw his hand, so I should have thought a little bit more about that, but that's going to be a talking point here in a second. I don't know what the Loomer player is trying to do. So I was like, cast the deafening silence. I paid for the fish, which I probably shouldn't have because I wasn't drawing that many cards anyway. And then, but it was like on like 2 maybe or 3, and my Badger Mole with the Enduring Vitality was like I was making so much mana it didn't matter, so I just kept the fish going. And so I passed the turn. Loomer player attempts to like start going off because like on their turn 1 they had actually cast like a Lotus Cobra and a Zurin Orb, and I was just like, oh well, that's not good. We just lose here pretty soon. Like the GG's, like might as well scoop and go home. So they start doing the thing. They cast Lumra. The table's like, Trevor was like, do I need to interact here or not? And I was just like, I don't know, knowing that I need him to actually interact, but I needed the lands to be gone on the Lumra player's board. And so I was just like, maybe not. I think it'd be okay on this one. Lumra player proceeds to sack the lands, and then this is to the Zurin Orb in response to the Lumra ETB. So Lumra dies to state-based actions. They had an Emergent Zone on board, but they did not crack it, and they didn't have an untap effect on board. And they had an Elvish Reclaimer that the Appa was also locking down for them to get more pieces. And I was like, okay, so now that this is on the stack, what is stopping me here? And so that's whenever I showed the Otawara. I was like, what is stopping me from like going off here? And the Loomer player was just like, well, I'll get the lands back and like I can tutor for this if you bounce the opposition agent. I'm like, right, but the ETB is still on the stack. All your lands have been sacked. You don't have flash speed because you didn't crack the emergent zone. And I think I have enough like, and also you don't have a land to sacrifice to the Elvish Reclaimer right now in order to go and tutor anything out. And he was just like, oh, well, I don't think you actually have the win here, but like you're saying that you have a win. So like, what does the rest of the table have to stop? And I knew the two pieces that Trevor had was a Quarter Calling and a Flare Denial. And what I should have done in that instance, and again, it was kind of like when we were talking about your Marnius game, I should have probably politicked in a way whereas like, you know, tried to convince Trevor, like, hey, like, I don't think casting something here on this one helps. Or maybe maybe if he had like corded potentially, try to like convince him to cast the cord under the deafening silence to do something to stop the Lumra ETB or things like that. Like I know he's not on Draenith right now, but I probably should have talked him into countering the Lumra, and then maybe the other player would just like try to do Lumra stuff again. Either way, I should talk Trevor into using a piece of interaction and then show the Otawara. Because at that point, Trevor can't interact with me. The Loomer player doesn't have anything to interact with me. And the Gwenna player is kind of out of it at this point. And all I have to do is bounce the opposition agent, cast Flash Thompson to untap one of my dorks, raise Sisay up to at least 3, go grab Agatha's Soul Cauldron. I make all that green mana off tapping everything because of Badger Mole Cub. I think I had a Gaia's Cradle out. Like, it was stupid. Like I all I had to do was those things, and I had enough to do just start doing Derevia Mill stuff and win. And so, but that's not what happened because I showed the Otawara too soon. And Trevor looks at me, looks at the Loomer player, and goes, "If you do not take a draw here, I'm gonna let Chase win." It just held him hostage, and like it pissed the Libra player off. Like he was not happy about it because I think again, kind of going back to the point that you had made earlier on like everyone just so like okay with taking draws and things like that. He like I thought he was about to be on the verge of just being like, okay, Chase just wins. If you don't stop him, he wins. But he ended up taking the draw. We took a draw, and that's on me. Like I should have had that game. I was positioned really, really well to win that game. I just fucked up on like whenever I was picking to show my interaction. And again, it goes back to that talking point I've been talking this week with Kellen on like not being too quick to reveal everything. Because what could have happened was Trevor cast the Flare of Denial targeting my flash, countering it and preventing me from going off in that moment. And then the Loomer player just wins. And so Trevor was correct in going, we can either draw or Chase wins, because that's at least how you get a point out of it. Like it puts the table kind of in a shitty situation, but it's also on me because I'm just like, I shouldn't have put us in that situation. I should have just won.
Yeah, which sucks. Yeah, we both fucked up by showing Ottawaras way too early.
I think it's interesting that we've both had Auto War games that kind of fucked us. We've both had Gemstone games. We both had like turn zero, like e-tutor. There was a lot of mirroring between us in these games.
Yeah. No, it was. I'm trying to, dude. This game is same thing, man. It's same thing as the last one. I I kind of fucked myself by again showing too much. But no, this game I actually was in seat 1, which was cool. I was really happy about that. There was a guy named Dustin. He was really cool. He actually watches the channel, but didn't tell me that. Obviously, nobody ever tells me that until the game's over, which I think is cool. I think that's smart. But he watches the channel, and he was on Yoshi Thrass. Thomas, our buddy Thomas, was on Blue Farm and C3, and then there was a Gitrog monster in C4. And so my turn, I don't even remember how my game opened. I'm just to be so honest with you. I do not remember what happened. I think I kept a decent hand that ended up with a Ristic Study, and then eventually I ended up with Zur. I swung and cloned the Ristic Study. So I mean, I was in like a really, really good spot. I know the Yoshi Thrass had developed into a Ristic Study. Wasn't really he was doing the Thrass plan a little bit, nothing too crazy. Thomas kept a weird hand that just ended up basically being like Fairy Mastermind and like some interaction, because he was like, I'm the control player now. And then the Gitrog player played like an OBM at some point. And this was like the most fair OBM that I've ever seen. It was like, if you draw a card, I'm hitting your life total. Wasn't pinging down creatures, wasn't targeting the green player, wasn't doing anything like that. It was like, when a person draws the card, they take the damage. It was very interesting. And that fucking OBM ended up being my downfall, because it came out on. There was one point where, again, I had drawn plenty of cards. I don't remember how this game developed. That's my own fault. But Thomas get probes me and sees my hand, and I had I think it was Source to Plowshare, and I could have killed the Orcish Bowmaster, but my thought was like, I don't think I just lose right now to the Bowmaster, and I think that if I kill it too early, then I potentially unlock the other creature shenanigans and stuff that are going to happen. So I knew, because I knew Gitrog is like very, again, like creature heavy centric thing. So I was like, I don't think that I hit the OBM here, because I think that I'm going to end up losing the game to like some other weird creature, and that's what I want to be able to have the interaction for. So I was like, I'm going to hold it up. Well, going to his turn, he starts comboing like crazy. We're all drawing cards. Damage is getting thrown around. This fucking Orc army is getting massive. I mean, I think by the time that this thing actually swung, it was probably like close to 30 toughness or power. I mean, power and toughness.
Jesus.
It was big. Well, I, in the middle of this, know, like, because they had already made it very clear. They were like, yeah, I'm going to kill you because you have double Ristics. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, okay. So I'm like, okay, I've got some mana on board, and I go and I tutor in response to one of the casts of something, and put Touch the Spirit Realm on top, and just kind of draw it off of one of my draws. And then I have Win already, or I think I was potentially showing Win. So I tutored again, and I put like a Tainted Pact into my hand again. Why the fuck did I do that? It was so stupid. I probably should have used my tutors more responsibly rather than trying to go find the win. I should have been like more responsible with my tutors, whatever. But probably could. Yeah, just again, whatever. You live and you learn. Yeah, they don't ask for draw. They don't ask for anything. They're not like, oh yeah, I see he's got a ton of cards in hand. So if I hit him, then like he, obviously dies, but then it unlocks the other players because I don't run interaction. So like he never asked for any of that. He was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna move to combat and I'm gonna swing this big ass thing at you. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I look at my mana. I have an Arcane Signet, a land, and a Mana Vault, all untapped. And in my hand, I have Zur on board, so that reduces the cost of Otawara by 1. In my hand, I have Touch and Otawara. And I literally tell myself, I'm like, I really want to have that Mana Vault mana because I'm a greedy little mana hungry person in Esper. And so I'm like, do I tap both of my color pips right here and just use the one like channel ability, or do I tap my Mana Vault, potentially hold up the other one just in case that there's a Deflecting Swat or Redirect Lightning? Because that's what I lose to here. And I literally thought this through, and I was like, do I be greedy? Do I be greedy? Do I be greedy? Spoiler, I was fucking greedy. So I tap both of my things like a fucking idiot, and I channel the Touch, and Thomas just smiles at me and shows me the Deflecting Swat. So then a stack battle starts happening. I counter it. He counters. I counter. Then the Yoshi player is like, haha, and like starts to go counter. And I should have made a deal. Being like, look, dude, I'll let you have another turn. I won't win. Please just do not let me die. I still have to answer this problem next turn. Please just do not counter this. I will give you another turn. like do your thing, whatever. Please, I just don't want to fucking die right now. And I should have made, not like that. I wouldn't be like, please, but I should have just
Please.
like come up with some way to be like, hey, can we just agree that you'll get another turn? I won't do
Yeah.
some weird fucky, I'm not on like breach brain freeze. Like, I'm not gonna fucking make sure that you don't have a library. I'm not gonna immediately go into your turn and be like, silence, haha, fucking got you. I don't have any flash enablers on board. Like, you're fine. And I probably could have got that through. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah. And then so I was just gonna die. And when I was getting ready to die, I literally just kind of told them I told the player that was about to kill me with the thing. I was like, hey, I totally understand, totally get it. Like this, I get why you killed me, but I do think you just lose to one of them, and if they get back to the next turn, because they've drawn so many cards, and I hate to tell you, but like I do think that they just win. And so I was like, but I'm good to scoop my stuff up. I'm dead. So y'all figure out what you want to do with it. Like, just let me know if I take a draw. Let me know if, whatever. And I start to be like, yeah, I'm going to let the stack resolve. And then that's whenever one of the players was like, oh, yeah, no, that, or I think the Get Raw player was like, oh, yeah, no, that does actually, just to let them kind of like go off. And I was like, yeah. And then so then I think a draw got offered. And I was like, I have no agency in this game. I'm dead either way. So y'all figure it out. And they eventually were like, yeah, we'll take a draw. Well, then one of the players, I think the Yoshi Thrash player, was like, I still want to play it out just to see what would happen. So then Yoshi Thrash like starts to go and starts trying to like combo off, and Thomas is like, no. And then they gets back to Thomas's turn, and Thomas just shows the win, and like there was nothing to stop it. And so Thomas would have won. And he even said to me afterwards, he was like, hey, I thought that I could get there. And he was like, but I wasn't 100% sure. So he said, I took the draw. And he was like, but I want you to know, like, I had win in hand. And I was like, yeah. And then he asked me, he was like, he was like, you knew you lost a SWAT there. Like, why didn't you just tap the mana vault and just be like, I've got the double channel ability just in case? And I was like, dude, I don't know. Because again, going into my turn, I had an uncountable. I had a cavern. I had an uncountable silence effect, so I was gonna be able to get there.
Yeah.
So what happens? Just fucking greedy. That was my whole thing. Greedy, play like an idiot. And so there was no one. It was good play by them. So I was really frustrated after that one. That was the game that got me kind of tilted. Not at anybody, just at myself. I was very upset going out of that one. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Why do you keep doing this? Like, these are two games in a row that you could have got wins if you just played your cards a little bit better. And again, that's where I started realizing, like, okay, I'm getting into the stage of the game consistently right now where I want to be at. And I feel like my deck is fantastic. I love Zerg. I feel like the deck feels great. I like the way that it is built and constructed. I could probably make some changes. Like, I think I'm at a point now to where, like, I love the deck so much, I could probably make, like, 3 changes. That's probably it. Like, that's, like, 3 cards that I would want to change. But in reality, like, the deck feels great. I just think fundamentally I fuck up. And that's, again, I was like, I want to go seek out coaching. And I think that I'll be better moving forward, but I'm taking a break from it for a bit just so I can, like, work on some other decks that are going to allow me to get into those interactions and stack battles and be proactive plus reactive and kind of see how that feels and see if I take stuff back to it. But I ended up with another draw.
So, if you've been keeping up at this point, you know that both of us have a loss and both of us have 2 draws. So we have the exact same record. And guess what that means? We get stuck in the exact same pod for round 4. It wouldn't be a tournament or an appropriate tournament if Blake and I didn't play against each other at least one time during the Swiss rounds. And that's what happened. So we go into round 4 now. And so there's a Grist player, like the Planeswalker Grist player on seat 1. So we have like a Golgari, like aggro, like just turbo deck. I'm in seat 2. We have a Magda player in seat 3, and Blake is in seat 4. And I could tell Blake was out of it at this point because, as he said in our previous recording when we attempted to do this, he was just like, fuck it. I don't care. I'm not even going to look at the first 7. I'm just going to keep it. And I could tell he was done with the day. Like, so, yeah. And that's where he was at in his headspace in that moment.
To be fair, I really did. I just like snap kept 7, was like, fuck it, I just want to get out of this game. My hand actually ended up not being bad. It was like some mana and then like an Orcish Bowmaster, so like it kind of worked out. But
Yeah. And to be fair, and I think we've said this enough on the channel before, and you can probably see it in our gameplays most of the time. We fucking hate playing against each other, especially at a tournament setting, because we are very competitive. So he kept his first seven, and then I fell into the thing that I normally do at tournaments, which I hadn't been doing this whole event so far, which is mulligan really aggressively and very low. Because I was seeing good hands through most of my rounds, and they had game plans, things like that. Every hand I saw was shit, and I could not do anything with it. I even got down to three, and whenever I got to three, the best cards out of that three were two fetch lands and a strict serenade, because that would have dealt with the planeswalker if it comes down, that would have dealt with Magda, that would have dealt with Zur. But then I'm just shit out of luck from there. There's no game plan with that. I have to play responsible and then just continue to fucking hope and pray. So I went the hope and pray route. I went down to two. I went down to a mulligan of two. And whenever I picked up this seven, I was so pissed. I was like, this hand is fucking stupid. Like, this is such a good hand. Like, it had mana, it had Tyvar, it had like it was dumb how good it actually was. But I could only keep two cards out of it. So I kept a Misty Rainforest and a Delighted Halfling. And that was it. I had no game plan. I had a turn one play, and that's it. And I would have kept something like a fish or an esper or things like that if that had popped up in that previous hand, but it did not. So we start the game. I'm on two cards. And so Grist player goes through. He plays a Deathrite Shaman. He passes. Gets to me, draw a command tower. Fucking gas. So we got two lands, and I don't want to play the fetch just yet because I don't want to filter through my deck and start hitting other pieces. I still have to have lands, things like that. So I play command tower, Delighted Halfling, pass. Magda player attempts to, I think they just cast Magda
I think
because
they
I
had
think that they had kept a gemstone hand.
I think they
Yeah.
on their first play, I think it was Magda and a dwarf because they were able to make 3 mana, so they made Magda and then like a little 1-drop dwarf.
Yeah. Yeah. So something like that. So they were able to get Magda out on turn one, and then they got the dwarf down, like Blake was saying. Gets to Blake's turn. I think he essentially just plays a land and a Chromox. And he had made a joke to me where like he knew I went down to two, and he could see like just like it would have pissed me off if something happened to my little dork. He's just like, whatever Chase plays, I'm gonna fucking counter it. He's gonna see this pact of negation right away. And so, what'd you pitch to the Chromox?
It was a pact. At
And I was
first
like,
I go
you
ahead.
could have blown me out. You could have lost right at that moment. We could have just walked away from the table and said, "Fuck it."
Just watch the 1v1 between Grist and Magda. No, dude,
Yeah,
it was funny. Yeah, I was so ready to be out of there. I was like, Chase, anything you play, I'm just gonna pact, and then I'm just gonna walk up. I'm gonna scoop my shit up and walk away. And then everybody thought I was joking, which I was joking. But then whenever I played the Chromox and I pitched a pack to it, everybody was like, "Oh fuck, he wasn't joking."
yeah, it was funny. So yeah, that's the first turn cycle. It gets back to the Grist player. I think they actually cast Grist on turn two. I don't remember if they do anything else that much after that. It may have been like a rock or something like that, but they were able to cast it through the Deathrite Shaman. They had another land. They got Grist out. They plus Grist to put an insect and mill a card, so on. And neither of us are too familiar with that list. So again, that's kind of another area where we should have had more of like a pregame discussion on like, hey, what does this deck actually do? I knew in my head, I was just like, if we're in Golgari colors, the most typical thing is a Protean Hulk line, and that's what it eventually ended up being. So then it gets back to me. And I'm like, I'm just top decking at this point. I have a Misty Rainforest in hand. Let's see what our card is. And I draw Iorith. And I'm like, this is stupid. Okay, so this card has come up twice in this event and has actually been really good. I've not been on the Iorth line at all until recently. And I'm just like, I'm eating my words because the line is dumb. So I see an Iorith. I play the Misty. I that go get, I think, a Trop or something like that. Cast Iorith. I'm hellbent at this point, but I feel really good. And so I just pass the turn. And so Magda, this is when I think things start getting a little bit fucky yet again. because I think the table is just like, I don't think we communicate it, but we're all like, we have to slow Magda down is the consensus, even if we didn't say shit about it. But Magda is like kind of being a little jumpy and like trying to take game actions like really, really quickly and move through phases before like anyone could really do anything about it. And that's whenever Blake is just like, I'm going to slow you down.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I don't mind. Obviously, like if I feel like again I've made and I said this in the episode that we recorded first, but like in regular EDH, you are just casting spells, doing your thing. But in cEDH, I feel like everything is asking for permission. Am I good to go? Like I'm in upkeep. Am I good to untap upkeep? Any actions? Am I good to draw? Draw. Okay, I'm gonna land or whatever. Like cast this. Does it resolve? Like am I good to go to And again, I play a deck that revolves around combat too. So I'm literally like good to go to combat. Attempt to swing was there, and like I have to make sure because I can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna swing was there, because people are like, whoa. Because sometimes I'll be like, attempt to move to combat, and then people will be like, what are you gonna get? And I'll be like, heuristic study. I'll just be honest. I'll be up front, or whatever. But yeah, it was just like very quick. It was like go to combat, swing two at you, or swing Magda and the other thing at you, and I was like, hang on, hold up, like start of combat. Give me 1 sec, and I literally was just like, look, I won't do anything if you'll just swing this somewhere else. And then I wasn't paying attention to the fact that like for some reason, I didn't realize that the Grist player had an untapped creature, and so they could technically block if they wanted to. I ran into this issue again, like I just wasn't paying enough attention. But so I was like, just attack the fucking Planeswalker. I'll let you have your treasures. I don't care. Like I'm not worried about blowing you out of this game right now, because you don't have enough treasures to do anything. And they were like, no, I'm like, he'll, and then the one guy was like, no, I'll block or whatever, which was also weird. I mean, yes, Magda will die, but then like you kill the dork or whatever. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I was like, It's like, I don't know if
No,
it would.
I think the thing that he had open was the insect token. So
Maybe
it
that's
almost
what it was.
didn't.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, it didn't matter to him. Like he just had a blocker for it.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay. But he was like, no, I'm gonna swing at you. And then I just showed the Bowmaster and I was like, can you just not swing? Can we just be responsible? Like, I don't know. Like I don't wanna just completely blow you out of this game. And I could have been way worse. Don't get me wrong. I could have like let him attack. I could have flashed in the Bowmaster, killed the Magda, blocked with the army, kill the dwarf. I mean, I could have just wiped his board. I
Right.
never touched any of his dwarfs besides Magda. I felt like I was pretty fair with the Bowmaster, but I was like, okay, before you move to combat, I'm gonna flash in the Bowmaster, ping, I'm gonna hit Magda, and then it was really weird because like I understand like yes, like it can be very frustrating when you see a Bowmaster when you're on Magda, but also I feel like if you're registering Magda, you have to be okay with the fact that you're gonna run into like removal and Bowmasters and things like that. And
Yeah.
like the whole game after that, he just kind of like was sitting over there being like fucking Bowmaster, like fucking Bowmaster. And I just kept hearing him say it, and I was like, dude, chill the fuck out. Like I understand it's frustrating, I do get it, but like you're on Magda. It dies to a gust of wind. Like I'm not trying to be mean, but like come on, like.
Right.
But yeah, so I cast the Bowmaster, I killed the Magda.
Yep. And then we go into your turn after that because he's just like, okay, fucking Bowmaster all the time. I'm going to pass because I get
No,
shit on by Bowmaster all the time.
did he cast? I think he cast One Ring after Magda died, right?
He may have. I don't remember. Like yeah. I think he may have
Well,
casted like a turn 2 One Ring then.
yeah. And again, I didn't kill the other dwarf when he drove from the One Ring. I killed like the insect or something. Like I don't know, but because the Grist was like, hey, I won't minus the Grist and just kill your Bowmaster right now if you don't like start hitting Grist. And I was like, that's fair. But yeah, like I drew for turn, played a land, and then I think I just mirror mated into a One Ring, and then tapped the One Ring and like drew a card and then passed. So now I had established like a One Ring, and I had the OBM, and that was pretty much my whole game plan from there.
Yeah. And then we get into the Grist player's turn, and he's just like kind of continuing to develop, but not really getting there just yet or presenting a win. Like he just makes more insects. I think that he had played like a Zulaport Cutthroat or something like that, like some aristocrats type pieces. So again, just like continuing to develop and go into what looks like it's going to be like some kind of line where you're sacking creatures and bringing them back and draining the table and things like that. So I mean, technically gets around like the One Ring anyway, and so yeah, so he continues to develop. Goes into my turn. And like I said, I'm hellbent. I have no cards in hand. I have a Delighted Halfling, an Iorith, and like 2 lands. And that's when I draw for the turn, and it's Marvin. And I'm like, what the fuck? How did I go to 2 and just naturally draw into this line? I have an uncounterable Iorith that I had played on turn 2, so I got it ahead of curve. And now I have uncounterable Marvin. This is stupid. So I just slammed the Marvin down. I have no cards in hand. I'm like, fucking deal with it.
Well,
Like,
what was funny is right before you drew that card, I was gonna joke and I was gonna be like, Chase, show me the Marvin, because I figure it happens all the time where like you pieces that are combo centric, like Thassa's Consult, you'll be shuffling your deck and then they just happen to be like right next to each other because it just doesn't get shuffled up well. And so I was gonna make the joke, I'd be like, show me the Marvin. And then when you cast the Marvin, I was like, motherfucker. But I didn't say it out loud. I was just thinking to myself. And the next thing you know, he cast the Marvin, and I was like, that would have been so funny.
dude, yeah, like it was dumb. So I was just like, I'm sitting here with a combo line already on board, and I think I made the joke. I was like, I technically have an infinite combo right now. I could just keep untapping them. But like, uh, yeah, like it was dumb, and so I continue to just play card pass is where I'm at in this game. Magda player, I think maybe like attempted to like cast Magda again at this point. I don't think they drew any cards off the One Ring. Like they didn't do too much, I think, in this turn. Like I don't even they may have attacked with the dwarves or
they
something like that they had on board,
they did,
just
yeah.
to get some treasures or something like that. But outside of that, they didn't do too much at this point in time.
Because I remember when, like, before they got back into their turn, they drew with the One Ring, and I was like, I don't really want to start pinging all your stuff down, and I just was like asking, and I think that was whenever I was like, fuck it, it doesn't matter. I was like, you haven't killed my Bowmaster with the Grist. I don't want you to because it keeps Magda in check. I was like, I think I'm just gonna hit the insect, and then that was whenever it triggered the Zulaport, and he was like, okay, I'll hit you for 1. I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So nothing really happened in the Magda player's turn there. We get into Blake's turn.
I don't remember what I did on this turn cycle.
I think you just kept playing rocks. I think you had a bunch of
Yeah,
rocks or something and like land and just essentially passed. Like you didn't even cast Zer here, I don't think.
I don't think, or maybe hang on, I'm trying to think. Was this the
Or
turn?
maybe you
This wasn't
did.
this wasn't the push turn, correct? This wasn't whenever they
No,
went for it.
no.
Yeah.
We weren't going. You may have actually, yeah, I think you actually cast Zer. I think you played
Well,
some rocks and cast Zer
I don't think
at that
because I
point.
didn't cast Zer until Zer came down and then the push happened like right after that. So
Okay.
because I
So we
remember
got one more rotation then.
yeah, and because then it
Okay.
got back. But yeah, but we'll explain that. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't think I cast Zer. I think I did what Chase said. I developed a little bit more as far as like rocks go. I didn't really have anything else, and then I just passed. And then that same thing. I think the grist just kind of set up even more.
Yeah. And that's all that really kind of happened for these like first four, like 3.5, 4 turns. It was just like everyone's just setting up and incrementally doing things all while I'm just like twiddling my thumbs and hoping I get something off the top. Um Grist, like Blake was saying, like just kind of continues to develop. He passes, and then it gets to me. I think I draw Mount Doom. I play it as land for the turn, cast Sisay. So I have Sisay, I have Marvin, I have Delighted Halfling, I have Iorith, and we're sitting in a really good spot. We have Sisay at 3 because of the Iorith color pip. We have essentially an activation because we have 3 lands and we have 2 untappers for that. And it was an uncounterable Sisay because of the delighted halfling. Like, yes, we are still hellbent, but the Iorth and Marvin actually come in handy throughout this next rotation on things. But yeah, we get to the Magda player, and I think it was almost like kind of the same thing here where I think they were trying to do stuff and they were trying to like hastefully do things. And I think you actually had to kill the Magda again, if I'm correct.
I don't know if I Can't
This
remember.
Magda kept dying like over and over and over again
Yeah,
to this Bowmaster.
I don't
Like,
think I don't remember if Magda died here or not. I can't remember what happened, but I do remember them swinging because I don't think I had creatures at that point. So I remember they swung at me, and I think at this point this is where they got to 4 treasures. But I don't remember if I killed. Well, I had the Bowmaster. What am I talking about? But I wasn't going to block with it. I had the Orc army. I think I had. I don't remember what the fuck happened. Now that you say that, I don't remember what happened. I just
I
remember they
think
got to
they
4 treasures. Or no, they did. That's not what happened. I think I did. I
I
think
think they
I
tried to draw cards off the One Ring, and
the
then you
treasures that they
killed the
made.
Magda down.
Yeah, I killed the Magda down. You're right. I did. I blew up the Magda because I was trying to think of where they made those 4 treasures at, and it was that bottle cap blast. That'll be relevant later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they never got
So
any treasures off of swinging with dwarks,
no,
dwarves.
that never, like maybe one, and that was it. And like the whole time he's just like fucking Bowmaster. Oh, every fucking time it's Bowmaster. And like we're just like, dude, chill. Like so like yeah, he drew cards off the One Ring, the OBM triggered, he targeted the Magda before he could move to combat, so on. And that's kind of what happened.
Again,
And
I
then we get
didn't
into Blake's turn.
I didn't kill the other dwarves. I just hit the Magda, and then I think I hit the Grist player like in the face because I was like, I don't want to keep
Yeah, that
losing
sounds
to stuff.
right.
Or no, maybe I hit the Zula. No, whatever. Fuck it. That's what. Never mind. Ignore me. Um, I keep getting
Either
ahead of
way, we
myself.
were pinging. He was pinging down the table, like he
Yeah.
was controlling the pieces that were on board in order to like slow down the game, so that way he could continue to develop. And I was just like sitting in La La Land. I was just like, I'm happy. I'm in Magic Christmas Land, like top decking everything that I need. It's cool.
And then this is where I tapped the One Ring, drew some cards, cast Zur, and then I think after that is whenever I passed, and
Yeah,
that was when we went into the Grist, and this is where the chaos ensued.
yeah. So the Grist player is just like, okay, let's just see what happens. So they attempt to go off, and Blake and I, neither one of us really like knowing what they're trying to do. They go into the like almost, I think Entomb to go and get the Protean Hulk, and they had a reanimate spell in hand. They actually had, they showed they had like, I think reanimate and like another
It was Animate
like
Dead, and I
a
think
anime
Reanimate.
dead. Yeah, so they had a couple of pieces of being able to get the Protean Hulk back, and so it was a lot of like, hey, do not continue to push. Like we can stop this, and like the way we're able to stop this is for me not having cards in hand. I think I did a pretty good job interacting here because I was able to untap both One Rings. And at first, it was just like Blake's going to have more pieces of interaction. So this is like how this is going to go. If you like continue to push, I have to untap his One Ring for him to see more cards. And so like I had nothing in hand, but I was able to kind of politic in a way where it's just like, Blake, let me see your hand. And like, so I knew he didn't have the right interactive pieces in that moment. And like the deal that I made, essentially, I was like, if I'm going to help you here, like I need to at least see 2 more turns.
Which I did clarify
Because
because I didn't know what you meant when you said 2 more turns. 'Cause I didn't think
yeah.
we were
And I
gonna get.
said, yeah. And I was just like, I need to see like 2 full turn cycles.
Yeah,
Like
he wanted to
that's
see
what I
the
need
current
to.
turn that was fixing to be his, and then another turn. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you agreed to that. And I thought that was clear across the table, but we will talk about that in a second. So you agreed to it. You show me your hand. So I was able to untap your One Ring for you to see, I think like 3 or 4 more cards, something like that. You show, and I think it was 3 because you instantly like drew them, showed me what you got off that. And in my head, I was like, fuck, you got an opposition agent. So that kind of slows me down a little bit if I attempt to do anything. And then I think still like you may have interacted with the piece there. I don't remember exactly, but like
I didn't. I
that's
didn't do anything just yet. What this is one of those moments though, where after talking to Zach, it made a lot of sense to me. But he was saying that he sees all the time where people will have like heuristic study on board, or they'll have just whatever, and for some reason, like they'll be on blue farm and they'll just tap out or tap down a lot of mana to cast like Timna, even though they're not gonna like be able to attack or anything like that, or they may be able to draw like 1 card off of the Timna attack. But he's like, when you think about what happens in that moment, you cast the Timna and you're taking yourself off of 3 other potential like pieces of interaction by doing
Yeah.
that. Yes, you technically could draw into like, you know, SWAT, fear, stuff like that, which is fine. But like we run a lot of single drop removal targets, things like that. So he's like, it's just smart to just not even do it. And so I think that's where I fucked up because I could have cast the Oppo if I would have just not developed the Zur. The Zur didn't do anything for me there. I was like, the game's moving slow. I'll just like develop a Zur and then maybe
Yeah.
I'll, you know what? It was completely irrelevant. Shouldn't have done it. Whatever. But I did it. And
Yeah.
then after that, we were in like a really weird spot to where I basically could only interact like once. And so I was really holding on to
Yeah.
that piece of interaction to make sure it was the right
Because
piece of
you
interaction to use.
because you only had the Sea of Clouds
Yeah, I had
open. That
one.
was your
Yeah.
only source, and like we even talked about it throughout the game of like rather. I ended up ultimately like untapping the Magda player's One Ring for him to draw 3 more cards during this stack battle, so that way Blake could actually like ping more of the table of the Grist player's board to continue to like prevent them from doing things.
This is where the Magda cast a spell. They bottle cap blasted the Zula port, thinking that was going to be relevant to the line.
Right. Which I mean, to some extent, it was because it takes another like life drain effect off the board. But ultimately, what ended up happening was we were unable to. We ended up letting like the animate dead like resolve, and then we were like, okay, like if he tries to like kill it here or something like that, like Blake still had some interactive pieces where he could have responded. Like I think he had a Swords to Plowshare in hand to where he could exile the Protean Hulk, so that way it didn't trigger. What ended up happening though is the Grist player had a sacrifice, and so that went on the stack, and you sacrificed the
As
Protean
part of the
Hulk
cost.
as part of the cost to sacrifice. So it did trigger the search. And so we neither one of us were kind of expecting that to happen. Fortunately, what he ended up grabbing, like he had grabbed like a Sylvan Safekeeper and a Viscera Seer off the first one, and like it was like a Malachor something. I forget the name of the card, but basically what it is, off of the first search, he grabbed this piece that whenever it enters, it becomes a copy of a creature in your graveyard. So it was a second Protean Hulk. And then after he sacked it to the Viscera Seer, he grabbed the pieces that was like Gravecrawler, Warren Soul Trader, and I think maybe
It
something
was Blood
else. I don't
Artist.
remember. And Blood Artist. So
Yeah.
exactly the 6 CMC in order to just win the game from there. Fortunately, though, he grabbed Gravecrawler, which required a cast.
Yeah. And that's what I was waiting on because I didn't cast. I had a silence in hand and I didn't cast it because I was like, I think that this is just onboard activated abilities and I don't want to use that. I want to wait and like use the swords. Well, then once I saw the Sylvan Safekeeper, I was like, swords does jack shit here. So I was like, I think we might actually just be cooked. And then luckily it was the Gravecrawler line. So I waited till he sacked it and I just silenced. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. So we were able to kind of stop a win, and I was able to interact there. I saw your hand, so I knew what to expect. I also did the same thing to the Magda player. I was just like, I need to see like your hand as well, see what you got going on in order to kind of save this. So I was able to see like all the information, most of it. Like the only thing that was like truly relevant to me was the swords and the oppo, which would have stopped anything that I tried to do. But it goes into my turn. I draw a Tarnished Citadel. And this is where I kind of feel like I fucked up because I didn't play it. I wanted to kind of like stay untapped and like be able to like feint as though I have interaction in hand. And that's where I fucked up. I should have just played it, remained hellbent, and passed. But in my head, I was like, okay, I'm at least seeing 2 more turns. And this is where we get into the Magda player's turn. And he's like, I forget exactly what he said, but the only thing that stands out to me was almost like this sense of like he was going, well, I have a way to get around the grist. And I think we were like, okay, how do we do that? And he goes, I'm just going to win. And you and I both were just like, what? Well, hold up, hold up, hold up. We both just interacted to save the game. And now we're doing this.
Well, that was the deal because I remember you talked to all of us and you're like, I want to see 2 more turns, and you had not seen your second turn yet. So Magda was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna send it. And it was the same thing, like real quick, try to go to combat, and I was like, hold on there, like hang on. And that because they already had 4 treasures, they just needed to swing with the dwarf. They didn't even need to even be able to like swing with Magda. Um, And so this is where we ended up in a situation to where Chase had the ability to like untap my lands so that I could interact more because I still had the swords. And I was so ready to get out of this game. I didn't have the ability to win at this point. At least I don't think I did. I was like, again, I was done from the get go. I didn't really want to be in this game. Probably a bad way. I mean, just a bad way to go about the game. Shouldn't have been that way. But I was just like, I was getting kind of frustrated because once we stopped the win from the grist, they were really frustrated at Chase because they were like, you're just handing the win to somebody else. And I was like, I mean, I've promised him that he's going to get to see more turns, whatever. So I show 2 pieces of interaction. Again, I don't know why the fuck I do stuff like this, but I just start showing it because I'm like, look, we can just take a draw. We can all fucking get up, go home, go eat, whatever. But I showed like swords, and I was like, I can kill the Magda before you ever get to swing. And then I showed a Toxic Deluge. I was like, I will Deluge on my turn. It'll fucking kill all the creatures that you have on board. Sylvan Safekeeper doesn't good God, protect it. And then it wipes the Magda board. Like, it obviously wipes Chase's board. I was like, we just fucking take a draw. And Chase was like, oh, I'm not okay with Deluge. And I was like, fuck, okay. I was like, well,
But I would have been okay with a draw in that instance if it had forced me, because I mean, going down to 2 cards and having to stay hell bent the whole game and still being able to interact on the stack and politic, like I think I did the best that I could outside of that misplay of not playing the land. But that was definitely a moment like I would have taken a draw because we get back to the Grist player's turn, and even though it's the last round of Swiss, I don't think any of us are making top cut, and I don't want to walk away with another loss.
Yeah.
So
well, then what ended up happening was like we asked for the draw, and the Grist player was like, no, I get back to my turn and I win the game. So like, no, I'm not doing that. And we were trying to be like, you don't get back to your turn. Magda just wins here. So like, and again, this is probably stupid. We're in the last round of Swiss. Draw does nothing for us. Like, we understand that. But again, I was just fucking done. But again, that's neither here nor there. Especially with just the way that the kind of interactions, because you could tell it was really feels bad from that player. The Magda being just so mad about the Bowmaster the whole game. So Chase kind of just made a decision where he was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna let the Magda win.
yeah, like literally, I was just like, okay, if you don't take a draw, Magda wins here, because then I don't have to untap the One Ring. Blake doesn't have to see any more cards. If he's saying he's just gonna win and we're not gonna take a draw, we're just gonna let him take a draw, or we're gonna let him win. And that's whenever the Magda player fucked up. And after all of that politicking and discussing the draw and things like that, before he moves to combat, he draws like 3 or 4 cards off of the One Ring. And we're just like, well, you kind of just shot yourself, because now you can't win, because now we have like 4 Bowmaster pings. And
yeah,
so
it was 3 pings, and that was where I fucked up. I should have like doubled up on the Magda just to make sure. That was stupid. But I was like 1 at Magda, and then I tried to ping off some of the Grist stuff that was going on.
And we forced him to sack lands, which I think was still pretty good. But yeah, I think that you tried to do that as far as the pinging off the Magda. I thought you did ping off the Magda. I don't think what did he have?
He had redirect. I pinged 1 at Magda. I should have doubled up on it in case he had like SWAT or something else.
Yeah. Okay. So it was an interesting situation, because so he cast the redirect lightning, and he could have, I was thinking of this in my head, he could have targeted the Bowmaster, like targeted itself, or like redirected that.
Yes.
He redirected it to the Grist board.
To the
and
birds,
I was just like,
their birds of paradise.
Yeah. And I was just like, I wasn't gonna say anything about it. I needed that OBM to stay on board for a little bit longer, but I was just like, that is an odd decision. So okay. And then I think that after that, like they ended up moving to combat. I think they made like some treasures or something like that. I don't remember.
No,
exactly.
They were going into combat, and then the politics restarted. And I said, Chase, like, I have the Swords to Plowshare. I will not cast the Deluge if the Deluge is the problem for you going into my turn. And then that was where we made the agreement. You're like, if you will agree not to Deluge because it just fucks me out of the game, then I'll untap your land and I'll let you Swords the Magda before he makes the treasures. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then you untap my land. I killed the Magda, and then the Magda player kind of got pretty mad.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, this Magda, I like almost understandably got mad, and I kind of understand the perspective of the Grist player, And especially with like in a game like where Blake and I are together and it kind of feels like colluding. I prefaced it earlier. We fucking hate playing against one another, but we needed one another to survive that game. So
Yeah.
definitely open to making some deals and things like that in this one. So yeah, ended up stopping Magda again there. We go into Blake's turn. And this is where I probably should have done a little bit more talking as well, but I'll let you explain your turn.
All good. Yeah, I didn't really have I didn't see when in that moment, and then I started just like trying to like piece together something, which again I was making sure I wanted Chase to obviously like I had to honor the deal. So Chase was gonna get another turn. But I was like trying to figure out how I stop the grist player from like just winning the game if it gets back to them, and I couldn't figure out what to do. And I was like, I know that they're gonna go Warren Soul Trader. I know they're gonna try and do reanimate stuff. So I was like, what gets me out of this game? And I was like, I can't deluge. So I just kind of like set it down. I was like, I'm not allowed to do this. So then I cast Oppo, and then because I knew that shut down the Hulk, and then I do I feel really bad because I'm not gonna lie, dude. When I was casting all this stuff, I was so tunnel visioned on Grist that I wasn't thinking about how like every fucking thing I put into play was just like fucking you out of your next turn. And then I really didn't. I promise you, I was not like how do I double sure that Chase can't do shit. I was so focused because I was like, I can't deluge. How do I get out of this? And so I was like, okay, this shuts down the Protean Hulk. How do I stop the Gravecrawler shit? And I was like, okay. And then I was thinking, and I was like, Graph Diggers, I can do that. So then I scheming him and me went and took his like demonic tutor, and I went and got Graph Diggers, tapped the One Ring, drew into some cards. Which one was the Graph Diggers? And I played the Graph Diggers cage. And then I kind of sculpted a good hand, and then just at that point I drew into I think Tainted Pact. So I knew that if I got back to my turn, I was going to be able to win the game. And then I said move to combat. And then there was just this like discussion that starts happening where the Grist player was like not happy. They were like, he's just handed you the game. And then like the Magda's like still over there like fucking Bowmaster, fucking Bowmaster. And like this, I was getting really frustrated at this point. I was like, fucking A, dude. And I literally looked at him. I was like, dude, you had the opportunity to take a draw. Like, and I'm not saying that a draw does anything. I understand. But like, you were in the face of like lose the game or don't lose the game. I totally understand. I get it. I'm not saying that you should be playing for a draw in the last game when it does nothing for you. But I really just wanted to get the hell out of that game. And so this discussion happens. I'm sitting there looking at my cards. I'm all irritated, and I just immediately was like, move to clean up, and I go to pitch my stuff. I get to their turn, and I look down, and I hadn't swung with Zur, and I literally was like, fuck this game so much. I was so mad. And I wasn't like, I didn't like obviously blow up on anybody. I was like, I'll keep it cool. But I was so pissed at myself. Not them, but I was pissed at myself.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? Why did you not swing? Like, and there was stuff I could have done. I was like, I've addressed the Grist. You obviously are going into your turn. Like, whatever happens, happens. I could swing and I could go shut off the One Ring with like a Touch the Spirit Realm or something. Like, or I could shut off, just whatever. But I was like, what the fuck? And so I just completely, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just got overwhelmed in that game.
Yeah.
And so I passed the
And
turn.
literally, yeah, you pass the turn and we go in the Grist player's turn, and I think he's just like pass. Like
Yeah, he
he
literally,
didn't
I can't
even
do anything.
he can't do anything, so I just passed. And as that like your turn was going on and he passed to me, and this is something I reflected on a lot. So like a little bit ago, I said I should have just played the Tarn Citadel and just passed the turn and had like access to 6 mana because I still would have been able to interact. And whenever I was saying I should have talked more during your turn, and we had talked about this a little bit on the previous recording that we did for this. So I think what I should have done in that moment, still play the Tarn Citadel, be able to play that as my land drop for the turn, go into my turn still hellbent. But if Blake was worried about the Gravecrawler stuff, been like, hey, I have answers to this. And so if you're worried about this, do not cast the opposition agent because I have answers in the deck to deal with graveyard things. And that my answer is just get Agatha's Soul Cauldron because then I have Iorith on board. I have Marvin. I like where I can be able to put an activation for Sisay. Sisay's at 3 power, so it's enough to check for the Agathas. And if I didn't have to interact whatsoever, probably what would have happened is I would have had Marvin untapped. Agathas probably would have would have come down, and then I probably could have gotten two pieces out of the Grist player's graveyard, the grave crawler, and potentially something else. So that way, hey, they're missing more pieces, and I could put a counter on Sisay, go from there. I think at that point, once that happens, you probably still cast the opposition agent, because all I have to do is go into my turn, put an activation on the stack, go grab a Sika, and I make infinite mana just right then and there in my upkeep. So like if you didn't have the oppo, or you had already previously used the swords, and I kind of talked you off of being able to do things, like you probably would have still cast the oppo on my turn to be able to be like, no, we're not getting any activations. But I think that if I had talked during your turn of like, hey, if this is something you're worried about, this is what I can do, and just kind of like hold pieces. So yeah, I think that that's probably what would have happened. My draw for the turn was a strict serenade, and like especially if I had not put an activation in my upkeep, and then I had seen the Strix, and you try to cast that oppo, and be like, "Fuck you, make it a bird." You probably would have just cast the Swords of Plowshare, or some other piece like on me, and been like, okay, I got past anyway. So I literally just played Tarn Citadel. I kept the Strict Serenade just in case this Magda player tried to play Magda again, and I passed the turn. And it was like the last like couple minutes of the round. Magda tried to assemble a win the best they could. They were like doing some crazy shit with untapping the One Ring, and they saw like I think like 10 plus cards, like almost 15 cards.
No, it was a
Like they
lot.
were they were
They
pushing, and it was like literally the last thing anyone could do. We were like the last game going on. I know Craig was sitting next to me, and I saw like, he was looking at the time and marking down, and like it eventually got to the point where the Magda player was just like, I ain't got it. So that game ended in a draw. And Craig afterwards was just like, dude, you had it. Like, why didn't you like do this? Talking to the Magda player. And so yeah, I think that there were a lot of like feel bad moments, but there was also a lot of like unwillingness to work together in that game in order to stop win attempts and things like that. And I think that it could have gone in a slightly different direction if there had been like a little bit more cooperation at times. But you cannot, like, people will make their choices, and I have a lot of games where I do that, where it's just like I'm going to force you to interact because I don't care like if you do or if you don't. um and so you always kind of have to learn how to navigate those situations, and make the best out of it, I feel like.
Yeah. No, I mean I agree. I think that at the end of the day, it is what it is, man. I still had fun. The event was fun. Getting to hang out with everybody was fun. I just was really disappointed with the way that I played the games. Like it felt good the lead up until the closeout, and I think that's where I just kept fucking everything up. So my decision making just really bad, and so now I've been working with Zach Adler. Shout out Zach Adler. If y'all don't watch them, go watch Bite Size MTG. Um, but yeah, so like I started doing some coaching with him, and I feel like it's helped me out a lot. And we've only done a handful of sessions so far together, and I've got one scheduled for like this coming week before we go to the Tabernacle event, which y'all have. If y'all haven't registered for that, it's that cap, so too bad. But join the wait list. And, but yes, I'm just trying to prep for that. But I already feel like I've gotten better. Just again, just playing some games on like Blue Farm and like just messing around with some stuff, and then being able to like pick my interaction points, being able to spot like windows a little bit better. Like there was a game we played where I noticed that like a lot of interaction had been spent, so I just asked Zach. I was like, "What all have you cast so far?" And so like I'm just kind of like keeping a mental tab, like okay, and like and so it was really fun. Like I've really enjoyed getting to play more games and like see the coaching and stuff help in that.
Yeah.
And I'm still gonna fuck up. Nobody's perfect in this game, and I don't even know if there is such thing as perfect. Like I was talking to my buddy Fizzle, like Xander, and even he said that he was like, sometimes there's just not an objectively correct answer because like you just don't know what all cards people have. You don't know what your next top deck's gonna be. You don't know, like you just don't know. You literally don't know. Like sure, you can develop as much information as you can, but like sometimes there's just not a correct, like an objectively correct decision. You could be like,
Right.
I could have done this, or I could have done this, or I could have done this, and all of them could have been right to an extent, and they all could be wrong to some extent. You just never know. So I mean, I'm not gonna beat myself up over that, but the technical play is where I felt like I really fucked up, and so that's some stuff that I'm trying to work on. But I'm really excited to work on it and like try to get better.
Yeah, I think for me it was a lot of just like jumping the gun on things and kind of assuming things before I I really had the win, like especially in that like round 3 game. Like that one was like almost a done deal. I should have had that one for sure. I went too early on like showing that I had the win and I got stopped. And even Trevor and I kind of talked about it afterwards and things like that. But nonetheless, overall, I felt pretty confident in what I was doing in most games outside of that, and like navigating like not just like some of the politicking, but navigating like, hey, like these are the things that are currently happening. This, and so like being able to just kind of be informative with the table and just kind of open in that way of like, hey, we need to like be cautious of these things as I'm continuing to develop my pieces. And yeah, I got maybe a little bit too focused on like showing what some of my pieces were, as far as like especially like the Ashiok and the Deafening Silence. But I felt like I was really able to like, I guess, gauge more of the responses of people to kind of inform myself like, oh, okay, like I don't need to play these things right now because these people aren't worried about this. Like they are making it very clear, like they're not worried about it. Like so, thankfully, with the job I do, I have to do a good job in trying to read people and things like that. And I think that those skills I've been fine with, especially coming into this game. But yeah, overall, like it was still a really good experience. It was good hanging out with friends from the Tennessee area and the Murray area that came up. We had 7 of us from Bowling Green that went, so that was kind of cool. Like we when we travel, we typically have like a decent number of people that show up and play. So that was always fun. So just thank you to everyone that not only went with us, but that were at the event and we got to talk to and just have a good time. And that you already mentioned the Tabernacle event that is this weekend that Blake and I will be at. And it's going to be a rough, long ass day because it's the entire thing is just a 1 day event. There is a redemption event, I believe, on Sunday. We will not be there for that one. But if you find yourself in Ohio this weekend and you're at that Tabby event, come say hi to us. Like just come up to us, say hi, tell us to fuck off, whatever you feel like you need to do. And now there's gonna be like at least 1 or 2 people probably coming up to us and be like, "Fuck you." Chase told me to say that. I'm like, "Yeah, you're correct. I did. I did tell you to say that." But yeah, we're gonna be up there for that event this weekend. Just really looking forward to it, seeing a lot of friends and familiar faces in the community. So yeah, if you're there and you want to stop by and say hi to us, absolutely do so.
Yeah, I made the joke one time, but we still need a stalker. So if you want to be that person, then come to Applebee's.
Yeah, and I think at that point, it's like I told you when we recorded this the first time. I think Parth is our stalker.
Correct.
Shout out to Parth.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, like I still had a good time, and I'm really excited for the Tabernacle event. I'm just
Yeah.
excited to try and be intentional with getting better and like I mean, just improving. I'm excited to like keep playing in tournaments, keep playing in some cEDH. I really want to have more, more top cuts under my belt, get into those games against really good players. So I'm just excited to keep going, but I'm really
Yep.
pumped up to see where everything goes.
Yep. Same. Yeah. And I'm hoping that even though this was a smaller event, we went to, kind of like what we discussed throughout the episode of just like what are the learning lessons that we got from it and what we should have done better, and just trying to be intentionally reflective on those things. That's what I want to know from you all in the comments as well. Like if you've been to a recent event or you've had some recent games that were kind of like the experiences that Blake and I had from this event, drop it down in the comments below and let us know like your thoughts, or what were your takeaways, or what were your fuck up moments that maybe you weren't so proud of. Or if you were like Blake in that last round, you're just like, fuck it, I'm ready to be done with this game and just storm out. At least he didn't get to the point where he's going to throw someone over the table, but it would have probably been the Magda player at this event. But yeah, drop it down in the comments below just your recent experience in tournaments.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Sean for making top 10. He was like the only one of us, I think, that went that actually made top cut, which he was on Arkham. So shout out Sean. He's really gotten
Oh
a lot
yeah,
better this year, dude.
absolutely.
We've had some games where like we've played together and he was ready to scoop it up. He was like, "Yeah, I think I'm out of the game." And I was like, "Dude, that deck's so resilient. Just stick with it." and then he'd play it out and he'd end up winning, and he was like, man, and then he just keeps playing and keeps playing and keeps playing, and he's like finding new lines and getting better and better, and it showed. He's doing really, really good with that deck.
Yeah, I think it was before the event. He was just telling me about like some things. He had been taking things out like Rustic Study and things like that, which I totally understand. In the deck, you don't want to draw like it's the same kind of thing Sisse gets into. Like you don't want to draw into like some of your pieces at times. But like I played that deck twice, and I think the day that I presented a turn 2 win with his Arkham deck through like being able to tutor for a Nexus becoming and then dropping like like dropping an encroaching Michael spawn from hand, going into combat. And he was just like, "You showed me things to learn." So he's like, I put pieces back in, and now I know what to do. So, but yeah, he continues to make pretty significant improvements in not just on the deck, but like in the gameplay. So yeah, shout out to him for making top cut of this event. And that's always cool to see one of our locals being able to do that. And, you know, it's not so much about you and I per se. Like, yeah, we want to do well, but like I've always made it a point on the channel. Like a goal of mine is to just continue to uplift the people around us, and hopefully the people that tune in each week and enjoy us rant and ramble about other topics or what we're doing and whatever that might be. So, yeah.
Well, brother, you
You
got
have anything
anything else?
else?
I guess as we wrap it up.
No, I really don't. You know, just kind of, again, the reminders. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and subscribe. Like, press the like button down below. Tell us, maybe even tell us things you didn't like about what we're rambling about today for our own events. You know, again, all comments are welcome. We kind of check everything out, and you know, some of them, if they are too, you know, being like, oh, you all need to be this way, or like trying to say we're stupid, we just end up laughing about it most of the time. So those comments are acceptable as well. But yeah, I
Feed
don't
the
think I have
algorithm.
anything else, you know, outside of, you know, if you want to continue to support us, like we said at the beginning of the episode, you could join our Patreon where we have $3, $5, and $10 tiers. And Blake is probably putting up the names of those paid patrons right now. So if you want to
I
check
don't know
that
why
out, and
I don't know why I do it this way, because they technically scroll from the bottom. So I should have been like, well, go ahead. Sorry.
but anyway, you know, if you want to support us in that way, go ahead and join us on Patreon, and everything kind of goes back into helping out the channel and trying to improve the quality of our content and things like that. And we've had some recent discussions on there, so in regard to that. So hopefully a lot of things to come in this year or within these next few months. Also, like we talked about in the beginning, if you want a fully proxied out deck that is good quality, go and check out Mana Vault Proxies. Affiliate link is down below, and use code CCC for 5% off of your order there. Also, join our Discord. Our Discord is free. We have a ton of people in there, a lot of really good players in the space, and like, if you have questions, most of them will answer whenever they can, or if you just want to chat with us, or you know, we're continuing to focus on growing this community the best that we can. Also, the link to the Kentucky cEDH Discord is down there below. So if you're in the state of Kentucky or the surrounding areas like Tennessee and Ohio, Indiana, so on, go on ahead and join that as well. So that way you can stay up to date on all of the events that are going on across our state. There's a lot more proxy friendly events that are happening. And our local shop is actually going to be hosting its first fully proxy event on March 21st. So that is also really cool to see, as our own local scene is starting to get on board with the proxies, and eventually they're actually going to be able to host even bigger events. Like right now, I think the player cap is at 40, but they're working on expanding the store to hopefully open up to like maybe even 100 player events or something. That'd be fucking sick. And if that's the case, and you're in the nearby area, or at least within the surrounding areas, then you have an opportunity to come see us at our local shop. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else. Blake, do you have anything for today?
No.
All right, then, you know, all I'm going to say is like, comment, subscribe, and as always,
Go play some cEDH.
Yeah, do it.